for help twice.
But something's wrong with the game.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Good morning, one and all. How we doing? Are we vibing? Are we rocking? Are we rolling? Hopefully. One thing you will notice immediately is that my voice is a little poopy again. Little poopy. That's because the whole family's sick again. Yay. Poor little Ori, he's all wheezy again, just like, I'm worried it's the same thing, the RSV thing that hit him in early December, because he's wheezing again, and he ended up being in the hospital for, almost 4 days, early December with RSV. So I'm hoping it's not the same thing again. I have the same kind of cough and liquid in my lungs. Lockie started to get it. Nikki doesn't really have a cough, so maybe she's gonna miss it, but yeah, you'll hear it in my voice, and so that's a thing. I don't know if it's gonna make me lose my voice and we'll have to cut today short, or what the deal will be, but just be aware that that's a thing. So yeah, that's a thing. But hopefully you had a good weekend. Super Bowl Sunday was yesterday. Game didn't seem to be that bad. I have seen a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's clearly rigged. I do find that funny. But, it seemed to be a good game. You know, the last time I really was watching a lot of football was like, I think it was high school, when like Peyton Manning had just gone to the Broncos, I think. And they went to the Super Bowl, and it was just like a 40-point blowout. It was just sad. Like it wasn't even fun to watch. It just got really, really sad. I remember that one. Other than that, like, I don't know. I've been out of the loop with football for a long time. Niners played well, stupid fumble, a missed point killed it. Yeah, I mean, that's what it seemed to be. I was playing Helldivers 2 with my buddy Corey, and Corey is like an encyclopedia of football knowledge. So he's, you know, the guy to ask all the questions about it, because you can just be like, hey, what's this? Is that weird for this player to fumble like that? And he'll just casually be like, oh, well, he's had 3 this year, and last season he had a couple. And I'm like, how do you even know that? That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's so funny. Foam Stars or Helldiver reviews out. Dude, so little behind the scenes look. I was gonna try to make a video on Foam Stars. I booted it up for all of 3.5 minutes after the tutorial. I did the tutorial, and then I booted up an actual game and went for like 3.5 minutes and then gave up. I was like, it's just, I'm already bored. So I stopped. But I then tried, and we made a video on Helldivers 2, and I've been having a really good time with it. It's really funny though. Like there's been a flood of people that seem genuinely confused that somebody could like Helldivers and not like Suicide Squad at the same time. They're like, can you believe this guy likes Helldivers when he was just crapping on Suicide Squad? I'm like, yeah, it's almost like one is a hot steamy pile of ass and the other's really good. It's almost like that, you know. Do you like your liberty? You're damn right I do. You're damn right I do. Have a taste of democracy. Oh man. It's freaking funny, dude. It's funny. I've been trying to ponder why I like Helldivers 2 so much more than Suicide Squad. And I think, you know, there's the core things, which are like gameplay loops and things like that. I think the other thing is the moment that you give somebody or give the audience something, they're going to evaluate it. They're going to decide if it's good or bad. And if it's bad, it pulls it down a lot. Whereas if it's good, it might elevate it a little. So in other words, like if you have a live service game and you just have like a really satisfying, fun gameplay loop, that pulls it up because it's fun, it's good, people are loving it, and that keeps it afloat. But the moment you add in like a story, you have to nail that story to increase the buoyancy, you know, keep it afloat. Because if it doesn't, if it weighs it down, it pulls the whole thing under. Just like Forspoken. If Forspoken didn't have the cringy dialogue between what's her name? Frey? I already forgot her name. Whatever her name is, and the cuffling. If they just had like cut the cuff entirely, so there's no banter, I think the game very likely could have been received way better from the start. Just because the moment you give them something to evaluate and either love or hate, all bets are off. Like the whole thing collapses. Oh, Sean, thank you. 5 gifteds to YouTube chat. Thank you, Sean. Very generous. And welcome everybody on YouTube that just became a member. Yeah, it's just like, I think Helldivers 2, it doesn't try to do any intense narrative. It's not trying to be super serious. It's not trying to do anything like that. It's just trying to be like a fun game. And that's that. And it's like, if you get more from it, cool. Otherwise, like, who cares? Whereas like for Suicide Squad, once they add in a story, and especially once they started comparing themselves to their previous games, like, you know, Batman Arkham Knight and from the studio that brought you the Arkham series, people will hold you to that standard. I really think like if Suicide Squad came from a different developer, and especially if it wasn't in the DC universe, if it was just those mechanics with different characters, I think it actually could have found some success. But the moment that you put yourself in that category with these other games that you've made that people love for opposite reasons to this game, you're going to be evaluated as such, and then you're going to struggle. And the other thing is, live service games get a lot of crap. I would say, you know, it's a knee-jerk reaction that gamers have because they have been burned so many times with live service games. But I do think that Helldivers 2 benefited from its timing, because it pretty much dodged all of the discussion over toxic live service games, and then just kind of slid into the release schedule and is doing very, very well. I mean, even right now on Steam alone, so not even like, it's technically on PS5 as well. It's, I guess you'd probably say this because it's PlayStation, it's primarily a PS5 game that's also on Steam. But right now there are 120,000 players on it. 120. Meanwhile, that hurts. Like, I will say it again. I was saying I thought that Suicide Squad was going to be up at 50,000. It's down to 2,500 already. Yeah. Wow. But I mean, I think it's just Helldivers 2 is just the great thing in some ways about live service games is that it's almost like a divining rod. Like, it either works or it doesn't. Like, it's either people have fun or they don't, you know? Like, it's not really at the end of the day a matter of hype, because a bad game that's hyped up will still fail. You know, they spent millions and millions promoting like Suicide Squad, hiring some of the biggest streamers on the internet to play it. And when the game came out, everybody's mum on it. Like, nobody's really interested. I don't even know if Shroud or any of those guys, Tarek or Dr. Lupo, went back and played it on stream after they got their bag. I don't know. It wouldn't have taken them very long. But the point is, like, even with all of that attempted generated purchased hype, it didn't go anywhere. Whereas Helldivers 2 is just like a solid game that's a lot of fun and just silly. And people are having a great time. On a Monday, 120,000 players. A Monday morning. I can't even tell you how remarkable that is. That's crazy. You don't see these kind of numbers for new releases very often at all. And it kind of pairs with something the devs said, where the devs came out, Arrowhead, and they discussed how they designed like the monetization schemes and everything. So as they say, one area of Helldivers 2 that's garnered a lot of discussion among the players is how it handles microtransactions. Helldivers 2 is a premium $40 game, but it also includes a rotating cosmetic store with each set of armor costs between $2 and $5. The game includes small battle passes called War Bonds, which include a mix of cosmetics and weapons. Crucially, players can also earn virtual currency via gameplay without spending real money, and War Bond items still need to be unlocked via gameplay even if you decide to purchase the battle pass. Yeah, you can't buy the War Bond things to redeem on the battle pass. You have to get those through gameplay. Responding to a fan on X who praised Helldivers' approach to monetization, Arrowhead CEO Johan Pilsted wrote, "You have to earn the right to monetize. I truly believe that. If people want to support this title, they have an option, but we are never forcing anyone to do so." And I think that's the thing that players can respect. Like, I don't know, I guess maybe I need to ask you guys in chat if you kind of go about this a similar way. When I really like a game, I go out and I intentionally try to support it, even if I'm not like getting that much from it, you know, like if like the example I've used before is The Witcher 3. I love The Witcher 3 a lot. That's no shocker to anybody. I love The Witcher 3. And as a result, like I wanted to support CDPR however I could. So from 2015 to 2020 or whatever it was, I probably bought 5, 6, 7 copies of that game, gifting it to friends, to my brothers, bought one on PS4, one copy on Xbox, one copy on Steam. Like I bought it many times over when I didn't really need, like, did I need an Xbox copy and a PS4 copy? No, you only need one copy. But it was one of those things where it's like, this could be slightly convenient, more convenient to have like my Xbox is upstairs, my PS4 is down here. So I'll get the copy so I can play it up on the couch. So it's like, I don't need it. But what helps me get over that hump of this is a luxury item is that it's going to support a game that I want to support. And I think a similar thing is happening with Helldivers 2, or at least that's what they're hoping happens, which is simply that they're like, hey, if you play the game, you buy the game for $40, you play it and you have a good time, and you're like, hey, I really like this, I want to play more of it, I want to support these guys to make more games like this, I'm going to vote with my wallet. And then they go and they spend $5 on a new skin or whatever, or on the battle pass, whatever, the War Bond pass. Then they can do that and it checks the boxes, you know. I think that this is a healthy approach, and I'm glad to see that we got a live service game that is actually pretty quality. It's had server issues for sure, and like yesterday there were a couple of hours you could still play the game, but there were like delayed rewards triggering, so your XP wouldn't necessarily log correctly immediately. But they were doing some server maintenance, which is just a reality for these types of games. But once it was back online, it's run really well. I haven't had any real difficulty post-launch on matchmaking or server stuff. So it seems like there was some sort of patch they dropped within like 12 to 18 hours of launch, and it just seemingly fixed a lot of stuff. So there you go. Game is great though. Helldivers 1 was great, so they understood the formula. Glad they challenged themselves with the third person view. Yeah, and I'm sure that wasn't easy, that transition. Only issue right now is the service matchmaking from Quick Play is a little wonky. Really, I haven't had any issues. That's interesting. Do you have crossplay on? Maybe it's worse if crossplay's off. I don't know. When I've had crossplay on it, I haven't had any issues. Crispy, I want to try Helldivers, but I don't have a group of friends to schedule games with. Hopefully the community matchmaking is good. I've had a good time. I haven't had any, like, what game were we playing where we just had the most toxic teammate ever? Oh, it was Valorant recently. We had one guy that was just like intentionally moving 3 steps at the start of every round. And then you just stand there and do nothing. Like just nothing. Just go AFK. And then like we'd lose 4 or 5. And then we would like, he would decide he wanted to start playing for real now. And he'd be like, okay, now let's try. It's like, what are you doing, bro? Like, it drove me crazy. It drove me crazy. I was like, you're in a match with other players. So we all reported him. Who knows what happened to him? But I've had that happen with Valorant a lot. Oh, everybody, just so you know, Norcat trolls everybody by saying everything is woke. So just don't feed it. Like, what was it the other day? It was like, I don't know, the oceans are too woke for me. It was something like that. It was can't stand those things. My goodness. I don't know why we're sick again, dude. Like we've been trying very hard to be like extra clean, hand sanitizer when Lockie goes to the park. Like we've been trying to do everything we can, and it's just hitting us again. But my mom was saying when I was a baby that she was in the hospital with me like every month basically because I had RSV all the time. And so I'm worried that something similar is happening with Ori. It suck, but oh my goodness. It's just like you can't get any air in your lungs. It's driving me crazy. The oceans took her gerbs. Yeah, dude, for real. Stop licking doorknobs. They're so salty. Thoughts on Ghosts of New Eden? Yeah, so in case you haven't heard of this game, I have actually been playing it. We filmed a video on it that will be going up hopefully tomorrow. But I've been playing Banishers every time I get the chance, basically, outside of other obligations and things. And it's really good. I mean, this is from the same team that did Vampire, that did oh crap, I always forget the name. The one in like the Oregon town. It was like episodic. Oh god. Why can I not remember the name of it? You know that story-based game, the narrative game? Yeah, with the 2 girls. Life is Strange. Thank you. My brain is not firing on all cylinders today. But yeah, it's from that same team. Don't Nod. Alan Wake. And it's really solid. Like, it's got quirks for sure, but I've been thoroughly impressed with it. I've been having a great time with it. And I think it's a definitely a cool game to check out. Some people are absolutely loving it. Some people find it less solid. Like the combat is one, as the game goes on, that and continues on, it gets a little bit button mashy. It doesn't really hold up as well with the combat later on. But the game is mostly about the narrative and this sort of like, it's not quite a detective based mode, but you're like connecting parts of stories to unravel realities. It's tough to explain, but it's really cool. It's really cool. So if you're interested in supporting like a AA sized game that's very narrative focused, I think it's definitely worth checking out. My video will go up tomorrow, going through the first couple of hours on it, kind of cut down and edited down. So and there's some really cool cinematic moments, like really cool cinematics. It's very cool, very cool. So do recommend it. It's another one of those examples of a game that's probably like, if you had to score it, it's like probably an 8 out of 10. Like, it's good. It's not a masterpiece. It's probably not going to win like Game of the Year or anything. Maybe like indie class Game of the Year, but I don't think it could even qualify as indie. Maybe Jeff Keighley would qualify it, but like I do think that it's worth checking out if you like narrative heavy stuff. I think 69,000 subs. Yeah, baby. We're actually disabling subscribing on this channel, so nobody can subscribe anymore. We're just locking it in. Yeah. Do you think Microsoft will announce their plan around when stocks close today? Usually announcements like that happen after trading hours, which I would not be surprised if that's the case. Usually it's like 4 p.m. Eastern. So it's after trading, but it's still within like business hours, so they can talk about it. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. Let me catch up on these. So again, thank you, Sean, for the 5 gifteds, and welcome everybody who got memberships. Spencer, thank you for the 2. Have you tried Enshrouded? It's so good. I still have it installed. I have not played it yet because I've been drowning in Helldivers and Banishers, but yeah, it's on my to-do list. I think that's going to be one of those, like when I'm done with Pal World for our, like, we play Pal World maybe once or twice a week with some friends. And so I think once we're done with that, I might try transitioning that group into Enshrouded, you know, because it's kind of similar survival vibe. So we might try that. I don't know. When's Jacob gonna make an appearance? That's a very good question. That's a very good question. Jacob, when are you gonna make an appearance on stream? When Jacob comes on stream, we're gonna have to do something funny. Because we'll sit next to each other. Like he can sit here and we'll have to do something. I don't know. I'll have to come up with something fun. Tenacious, thank you also for the super chat. Did you watch Hogwarts Legacy developer bloopers video? Really cool to see the different versions the UI went through. Yeah, and I also remember that they went through a period where they were like, they were blurring all of the UI elements too. They didn't want people to like see it. Like, look at this. Pacific Drive, played the demo for Pacific Drive and it was thoroughly interesting and I can't wait for release. Have you checked it out? Any thoughts? I'm hoping to work on something for that game. It's still in the works, so I can't really talk about it just yet, but I am hoping to dive into that because that's another really cool, very different kind of game that I'd like to be able to kind of share with people if they aren't familiar. So potentially, yes, we'll be covering it, but we'll just see. Okay, let's see. This is the developer's blooper reel for Hogwarts Legacy, in case you guys haven't seen this somehow. Oh, you know what? I think Nikki hopped in the car and it's connected to my Spotify. And so she's listening to Disney songs. So she's listening to Mother Knows Best from Tangled. And so it tied to my Spotify when I unmuted. That's funny. Okay, now we're good. The last thing I want is for the stream to get taken down because I dared to play Mother Knows Best from Tangled. That'd be a really funny way to go out. Luke, why did you get a copyright strike on your channel? Well, Tangled was playing. Okay, anyway, let's see. Lockie loves Tangled. He loves it. Okay, this contains spoilers and old in-game development footage with cut or altered content and designs. Captured through the development of Hogwarts Legacy. Game development is hard. This is for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, I love that they capture this and that they share it. It's one of my favorite things about game development is when they show like the crap you have to go through to get the final product. I love it. I find it so interesting and it makes me appreciate the games even more. And you'll see there was a lot of stuff they wrestled with. Beautiful shot.
How far did that portkey take us?
It looks like his tongue was scaled or something. I don't know. That was funny.
Farther from London than the
Yeah.
carriage traveled.
So yeah, all of the blurred out UI.
Never could remember the password when I was a girl, however.
Hello there. Good to see you.
Now, you may be asking yourself how an old woman like me single-handedly took out the largest poacher ring in eastern Wales and lived to boast about it.
Meanwhile, Todd Howard's looking at this and is like, looks fine to me.
Bad for a beginner.
Yeah, classic. T-pose, you gotta love the T-pose walking. And then the side eye as he goes by. I think I actually did see somebody at launch who had a bug like this.
I officially have all of my supplies.
Excellent.
Actually,
I don't think so.
What was that goblin doing with Victor Rookwood?
Ranrock is working with Rookwood.
The goblin from the Daily Prophet.
They will take time to grow.
That's horrifying. That's really scary. Wow. Giant walking book. It's one of those things, like, imagine if this stuff leaked, though. Like, imagine if these clips leaked, and then everybody's like, oh, clearly this game is going to be trash. You know, it's why it's really dangerous to try and infer stuff from leaked gameplay footage. Like, was it Dragon Age Dreadwolf recently? Well, not quite recent. I think it was last year, like middle of last year. But they had some gameplay, early alpha gameplay leak. And it was like, you couldn't really take much from it other than maybe they're going for this general vibe. But other than that, people were trying to be like, combat already looks trash. And it's like, imagine if you saw this. You're like, well, clearly the game's going to be a buggy mess. Maybe it will be. But like, you can't take a lot from this, you know? It's funny. Swimming through the castle.
Fascinating, isn't it? Anyway, if you have questions for me as you settle in here.
This is why QA is important. That seems like...
Petrificus totalis.
Oh no. Oh wait, so is that... Were they doing a thing where they had like text to speech when enemies would cast spells because they hadn't finalized like the particle effects? I think that's what might have... Yeah, Petrificus totalis. Or I bet it was just text to speech because that's what the character would be yelling, but they hadn't recorded the dialogue yet. So they just were playing that. I bet that's what it is. That's pretty good. Oh. Don't leave Poppy. Damn it, Poppy.
Arrival. Do you have the moonstone with you?
Depulso.
We do. Good. It is.
Just goes in there and knocks him out. Oh, see, that's the combat system I want. Looks fine, looks fine.
A curious cat, you are. My friend appreciates their privacy.
The robotic voice really sells it too. Boy.
Something we can do about it.
Run along then. Class is dismissed. Unless there's something else.
Unless there's something else. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. So always remember, pretty much every game goes through stuff like that. And then if you end up with a game that doesn't have that stuff, that just means that they fixed it and that they worked their butts off to do it. Because so many little bitty problems come in. Like so many little things can cause massive problems. And you know, it can even be something as little as the anchor point for this scaling effect was off by 0.1 in-game units, and so the whole thing scales exponentially instead of linearly. Like little bitty things can happen that just break everything. And the magic of game development is that really like efficient game developers, they build kind of iteratively, so they make little bitty improvements from game to game to game to game. But when you do something big and totally different, like going from Cars 3 Driven to Win to Hogwarts Legacy, you're building all new systems, you're building all new like animation sets, combat systems, everything. Like you're not talking about an iterative thing anymore. Like From Software, from Dark Souls 1 to 2 to 3 to, you know, Bloodborne to Sekiro is very different, to be fair. But then from like Dark Souls 3 to Elden Ring, very, very different games. Narratively, sure, in terms of the world, it's different, but mechanically, very, very similar. Very similar, which is why players love it, because it's in that same family. It's basically Dark Souls with an open world. But that allows them to not have to reinvent the wheel every time. But for Hogwarts Legacy, I mean, they were basically reinventing the wheel, or just inventing the wheel to begin with, because they didn't have it yet. So it's always impressive to me when a studio comes out, does something very different, and they are able to deliver a pretty good product at the end of the day. Do you think Hogwarts Legacy was snubbed at the Game Awards? News have it sold very, very well, and it looks like one of those games made with a lot of heart. Yeah, I think the fact it wasn't even like really considered for like best OST, best soundtrack, is baffling. Best adventure game, it wasn't even nominated. That's to me laughable. It was just clear like nobody wanted to juggle the hot potato of Harry Potter as a franchise, because people just were like, it's not really worth it, let's just ignore it. So they just kind of pretended like it didn't exist. You know, it's too bad, because I think it deserved recognition. I mean, it was literally the biggest game of the year, and gaming journalists just pretended like it didn't exist, which I thought was somewhat shameful. Is this gonna be a 4-hour stream? I don't know if my voice will hold up. I'd like it to, but we'll see. Real quick, I guess let's talk about this real quick, because this is kind of on everybody's mind. Phil Spencer has reportedly reassured employees Microsoft, quote unquote, won't stop making Xbox consoles. The exec is claimed to have addressed online reports in an internal town hall meeting. The gaming division reportedly held an internal town hall meeting this week to address reports it could be bringing some of its first-party games to other console platforms. I don't know. Honestly, guys, we talked about this last week. I think this whole story of Microsoft bringing some of their games to PS5, I think it's kind of hilariously... I think it's overblown. Personally, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. And the reason I don't think it's a big deal is just simply because I think the only people really getting upset about it are people that are members of what they would consider to be like the Xbox family, or self-described Xbots, or, you know, the same kind of guys that are like, we're fighting the console war. We got to take down Sony every chance we get. And I think that represents such a small percentage of the gaming community that it's basically negligible. If you're the type to like be pissed that they're going to port a game that's been exclusive on Xbox for years in the case of Sea of Thieves, or a year in the case of whatever it's called, the rhythm game, music rhythm game. Again, my brain is fried today. Did not sleep much last night. Hi-Fi Rush, that's what it is. If you're the type of person that's going to be really upset about that, okay, I can't stop you. It's your right to be upset about it. I think it's silly to be upset about that. But okay, you know, if you bought into this and you've tied your personality to Xbox and you feel like Xbox is giving up, I guess it makes sense that you're upset, but I still think it's silly to tie your personality to a hunk of plastic and silicon. In the same way that, like, if Apple screws up the launch of the next MacBook or iPhone, and then you start to like really hurt and you're like depressed because of that, that's a problem. Like, that, you shouldn't do that. You should have more going on in your life than tying yourself to like multi-trillion-dollar companies. Because guess what? They don't care. I think there's actually a really good thing put out by, let me see if I can find it. Likes. I think it was Colin. Yeah, this clip. I thought this was really good because he was talking to a group. I don't know who all these guys are. Of course, I know Maddie. This is his co-host on his like Defining Duke podcast. I'm not familiar with this guy. I don't. Maybe I will once he moves his head. And then I think this is one of the producers for their like network of channels. But Colin is like a veteran of games journalism. He's been around for a long time. But he's talking to these guys about the Xbox situation. And I think he put something very, very well, which is just simply that a lot of Xbox creators started to misunderstand the actual relationship at the core here. And I think he puts it very, very well.
You're talking about, because I agree with you generally speaking, like we have to be analytical. And I took an enormous amount of abuse from Xbox fans for being analytical. The reality from my perspective, and I'd be very interested to see what you think of this, is that I think one of the mistakes Xbox has made is, and makes Sony and especially Nintendo look much more brilliant in hindsight, is like they just don't say anything to anyone. They don't feed this, frankly, parasocial fanboyism that is deep in the Xbox ecosystem. I'm sorry. Like, it's not to say that there's not obnoxious. I hate so many people that cover PlayStation. They're fucking annoying. They're fanboys. They're obnoxious. But Shuhei Yoshida isn't gassing them up. The sad reality, and you see this, is like men acting like children, mostly men, women too, acting like children because they think they played Halo with Phil Spencer once. And so like Phil Spencer's his best friend and Phil would never do this to him. And I'm not talking about anyone specific because I don't even know who exactly that is, but I know that that's the kind of discourse that's going on out there. And that shit is fed by executives that are playing on the fanboyism in their own ecosystem, and it's backfiring on them in a major way. Because if this was happening with PlayStation, we would be fucking melting down, of course, in our own ecosystem. But the one thing you couldn't do is point to all the different things everyone said to you and how you did this and you had brunch with this guy and you met this guy and this guy signed your console and all this. And I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that stuff, but you're feeding into that like they care about you and they don't. Now, it doesn't mean you can't broach the friend layer, but generally speaking, they want you to speak positively about their products. They're going to give you access and try to tip the scale to make that happen. And when things go bad, you will defend them. And you have to kind of draw a line internally and understand it's like, they're not your friend. They don't know you.
What?
They don't care what you think.
What?
And they're
Papa
manipulating you. And instead of you understanding the manipulation and using it to your advantage, you're letting yourself be manipulated into the point where you're selling your Xbox consoles and you're melting down on YouTube, videos and all these things about innuendo and rumor that we frankly don't even know about. And that's unique to this Xbox generation. And I really want to know what you guys think about this, about like what I see as like an overt toxicity per capita, way worse than anything going on in the other ecosystems. A lot of it fed by this idea that the corporation's behind you and the corporation cares about you. And yeah, I do my free marketing and I do my free reels and I make all this beautiful stuff and I promote the product. How can you betray me like this? And it's like, dude, you didn't even come into their minds for 1 iota of 1 second.
Yeah, they do not care
when they were making this decision. And you're being manipulated.
Yeah. It's amazing, but like as you can see, there's this whole thing where like some of these Xbox fans went and like met with members of the Microsoft marketing team. And like, for one, these are like 40-year-old men that are doing it's just kind of funny. But like it's something Xbox has very intentionally tried to do because it ties it makes a relationship between this multi-trillion-dollar company and the gamer feel very personal. Like, oh, it's just at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of friends. I know the guys that run Xbox. They take care of me. They wouldn't screw us over like this. They're fighting the good fight. It's like what Colt said in his video we watched last week, where he's like, and remember, we have to hold the line. What do you mean hold the line? We're talking about video games and like console sales numbers. Like, what are you talking about? Hold the line. This isn't an actual war. Like, Microsoft's trying to sell games to people and they're trying to find the best way to do that. If they make you happy while doing it, cool. If not, who cares? Like, even somebody with 150,000 subs or 500,000 subs, whatever, they, like, if every single one of their viewers bails on a publisher or a community, like, these companies don't really care that much. It's like a bummer, sure, but they don't really care. It's not going to make or break the bank. Like, it's a similar thing you kind of have to learn when you're doing content creation, is that like if you have a live stream coming in with like chats and stuff going crazy, if you have one person that's just being toxic in the chat, you can just mute them, hide them, ban them, whatever, and it will make the overall thing better. Even though you lost one, in the grand scheme of things, that one viewer wasn't going to make or break the bank because they were bringing down other things that were more problematic. You have to learn that, like, unfortunately, some things are there's collateral damage with some of these choices. And I think that that's what Xbox is learning with this, is that making these choices to bring games that these guys thought were going to be exclusive to their platform and bringing those to PlayStation 5 and PC and everything else all at the same time, or relatively close to launch, whatever they choose to do. It's going to piss off these guys, but for Xbox, they're looking at it and they think that they can frankly make more money by bringing these games to PS5 than keeping these guys happy. And I think that's what is hurting them so personally and upsetting them so much, is that they thought that they were like the best buds of the executives when they weren't. They were just a pawn. Like, and it's something to remember. Like, people sometimes ask, they're like, oh, so when you go to like preview events or you do stuff like get review codes and stuff for games, are you worried that you're just going to start to feel, I guess, obligated would be the word, to suck up to PlayStation or suck up to this or that or whoever? And it's like, maybe some people, but at the end of the day, like, I understand the relationship, and I think a lot of creators do, that when Ubisoft sends me a review code, like Ubisoft, they are, the only reason they're talking to me is because they want me to talk well about their product. They want me to sell it to my audience. They want me to win my audience over. And so they need me just as much as I need them for content, you know? And the great thing with all of this is that a lot of gamers are still willing to watch content and reviews and stuff, or videos breaking down games even after they've launched. So review codes aren't that crucial. Sure, like for Starfield, I think my Starfield review did like maybe 800,000 or close to it, something like that. And so like that was nice to have that video out on day one, but I can guarantee you I could have gotten probably 400 on a review posted a week later, and then another couple of videos I would have put out after that would have caught it up. So it wouldn't have been that big of a deal if I hadn't gotten the review code. It's nice, but is it worth sacrificing like your pride to suck up to a brand? Like, no, I don't think so. So I do think Colin's right that a lot of these guys seemingly have forgotten that Xbox is not their friend. PlayStation's not their friend. Nintendo definitely is not your friend. They are just there to sell a product. And if they sell a product to you, great. If not, oh well, you're a number on a stat sheet at the end of the day. Like, you are one of many numbers they're looking at, and you're probably not going to make or break the bank at the end of the day. Yeah, Steam ain't your friend either. Like, nobody is. But with this, like, what Phil Spencer reportedly said to everybody was that they have no plans to stop making consoles, and that Xbox consoles will continue to be part of its strategy, which involves quote unquote multiple kinds of devices. The rumors recently in the last like couple of weeks have been that Microsoft wants to do a like standard console, so like a Series X basically, but the next generation of it. And then they want to do a secondary device like the Series S, which I actually have down there. But the Series S replacement for the next generation is basically going to be a Switch. So their goal is to have it be a handheld Xbox that can play some games natively, potentially, and then also do xCloud streaming, but that you can also dock and then stream to a PC or stream to a projector or TV or whatever else. So it's kind of a hybrid of the two, which I think works way better, frankly, than the Series S. I mean, I think you get the lower price point. You also target mobile gamers and players that are going on the go. I think having an Xbox handheld makes a lot of sense. I think it just could work very well. And apparently the handheld device is being designed by the Surface team. And if you've never used a Microsoft like Surface tablet PC, they're very good. Build quality, very, very good. So I'm excited to see that. I think it could be really cool. When I worked at Best Buy, there was one issue. Batteries on those things swelled up so bad. I cannot even tell you how many times our like display units, the batteries would swell and like separate the back of the plastic off the back. Like it was bad. I wonder if there's like a Microsoft Surface battery swell. I just want like pictures of it, because yeah, it kind of looked like this. Show me the picture. Open image and new tab. Yeah, it would like separate out the back, and we'd have this on all of our display units within a few months. So hopefully they fix that since I worked at Best Buy, because that was a thing. Like the batteries, they would go in looking like maybe a stack of 10 or 15 playing cards, and at this point they would look like water balloons filled up. It was like it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. Xbox just posted something about the meeting. Oh, okay. Xbox will hold an official podcast on Thursday, February 15th with Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty to share quote unquote updates on the Xbox business amid multi-platform rumors. I mean, it's interesting they're framing it as a podcast. So I would presume that means it's much more conversational and probably long form. Like they're going to be actually maybe answering some questions, responding to some other stuff. I don't know. That could be really interesting. But I like the vibe. So we'll see. I guess that's when we're going to find out the next step. With all of this though, like let's be honest, if the answer was no, we're not doing any of this, they would have just said that. They are bringing games to other platforms. They're not going to pivot because they upset 35 people that make YouTube videos. They're not going to do anything like that. They'll just kind of let it move on. And honestly, like, I don't think, and maybe this is just naivete, I don't think that the fanboys on PlayStation or Xbox's side of things really do that much to move or sell consoles. Like, yeah, it's just an echo chamber, but I think those people that are diehard fans of Xbox or diehard fans of PlayStation will always be there. I think they'll always be there, whether there are YouTube channels catering to them or not. So I don't think PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, anybody really cares that much if they upset their hardest core fanboys, which is kind of funny because you'd think they'd cater to them, but I don't think it really makes that big of a difference at the end of the day. Like it just doesn't. It doesn't. So now if you can win over like more independent reviewers, journalists, gamers like that can make a difference. That can absolutely make a difference. It's why I said like with Suicide Squad, it was interesting that their marketing campaign was focusing a lot on bringing over people that were already like diehard fanboys of DC Comics and of like Marvel's Avengers, you know, another superhero live service game. And so they're trying to win them over instead of trying to win over more middle of the road pop culture gamers, maybe. Like it was just very interesting that they chose to do that. But I think the failure of the game kind of shows why that was maybe a bad idea. How long did it take you to build the Lego Hogwarts Castle? I think it was like 2 sessions, 2 evening sessions. Me and my buddy Caleb, we built it. It probably took us like 6-7 hours total, but both of us working on it. So like 12 to 14 hours of labor, I guess, roughly, I think, yeah. When do I think Activision Blizzard games will be in Game Pass? I mean, I think they probably bring stuff within 18 months. You start to see stuff. I don't think you'll see, like, I think you'll see the same kind of thing where it's like early access available on Game Pass. So maybe for the next Call of Duty, it's like play the game 3 days early if you have Game Pass and play it that way. But then you could also pay $100 for the deluxe edition and play it on PlayStation early, something like that. That wouldn't shock me. So I don't know. Banishers Ghost of New Eden's very good. It's very good. It's got some quirks. Combat gets a little stale the more you play, but it's very good. It's a super cool, very different kind of game. So yeah, if you're interested, you should go try it. Any news on Space Marines 2? No. I've been waiting. Sigmire of Katrina. I have been waiting. I've been talking to the guys at Focus Entertainment. I have told them I want to know the second they know anything about it to share it. Like, I've been asking for updates and there's currently nothing. So once we're closer to launch, I think I'll hear some stuff. But even last year, you know, they were very coy. They weren't really saying a lot about the game. And then, of course, they delayed it basically a year. So my hope is that it just comes out and nails it. Because, man, that was so cool if they did that. Warhammer's, I think, going to be taken off in the next couple of years. I'll tell you what. Because they have that Henry Cavill show that's in the works and a bunch of other stuff happening. And then this game's coming. There's a lot. So I think it has a lot of potential to do very, very well. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Oh, somebody spotted Dr. Disrespect at the Super Bowl. It's like, where's Waldo? That's pretty good. Where is he? I'm just wondering if he stayed in the costume the whole time, or did he like bring those in a bag and then put them on? I don't know, just for the picture. You'd think he'd want to go incognito, but I think this is also like the DraftKings section because everybody's wearing like DraftKings hats, and he said thank you DraftKings for the tickets. I'm actually like low-key surprised at how quickly everybody's just like adapted to the sports gambling thing. I thought that people maybe would have had more resistance to it, but like a lot of big streamers are all sponsored and celebrities are all sponsored by sports betting websites and stuff, and nobody really seems to care, which like if you're an adult, I don't really care. Whatever you like, whatever you want to do with your money, do it with your money. I'm just surprised because like normally it seems like people would get outraged about that type of thing, but I guess people don't care. I don't know. Oh, that's just him sitting down. Yeah. If you don't know, he's freakishly tall. He's very tall. He's like 6'7", 6'8", something like that. He's very, very tall. It's a whole thing. Honestly, the headphones are probably a good idea. It's probably very, very loud. Where's Wally in the UK? And that's a better name for it. I like Where's Wally more. I like that more. Borderlands Twitter banner speculated look like a 4 in the sequel rumors. Yeah, I mean, of course they're making another game. I mean, it's like a fun little nod, little suggestion, but yeah, it's like for those types of things, it's always like, oh yeah, they're doing it. It's like if Microsoft, or rather if Bethesda started putting out little things with like a 6 on it. They just release a shirt with a number 6 on it. It's like, oh, they're confirming Elder Scrolls 6. Yeah, I mean, but they did that already. So it's like, we know it's happening. We know it's real, you know. Elden Ring mobile game. Yeah, they're apparently working on it. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. Who knows? Odin, I just started Monster Hunter World and I see why you love it now. I know, right, dude? If you have friends that you can play it with, it's a very good time. Do you have a wall-mounted monitor, or is your desk really that deep? So much room, I'm jelly. Yeah, no, they're not wall-mounted. Everything is sitting on the desk. It's just an IKEA countertop. That's all this is. Just go to IKEA, spend $150 on a big-ass island countertop, and then put it on some legs they also sell or on some cabinets that they sell, and you have yourself a badass desk for like $250. Whereas if you were to buy a desk this size, you'd be spending like well over $1,000, you know? It's crazy. It's crazy, but way better. Simon, thank you for the super chat as well. Any thoughts on the new Transformers game? There's a new Transformers game. I mean, I guess this is the giveaway. I don't have thoughts on it because I didn't even know there was a new Transformers game. I just Googled Transformers game and there's nothing popping up except games from 2 years ago. Yeah, I don't see anything showing up. Plenty of mobile games, but yeah, I'm not seeing anything on a new Transformers game. I must have missed it. You mentioned Dreadwolf earlier. Are they making a showcase for it in the upcoming days? I don't think in the upcoming days. I don't know why they would do that. No, I've not heard anything about that. This was kind of funny. People were talking about this. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot. He said that the $70 price tag of Skull and Bones was fair because what he said is it was a quadruple A game. During a Q&A session as part of a conference call discussing Ubisoft's Q3 sales for the fiscal year 2024, one caller pointed out that Skull and Bones now appears to be taking a more live service approach. The game's year one roadmap was recently published, for example. The caller asked why Ubisoft was insisting on charging $70 for the game and potentially limiting the size of its player base, suggesting a free-to-play model may better suit the live service mechanics and give it a better chance of building a community. Guillemot replied with an assertion that Skull and Bones deserves to be a full-price game because of its scale. Quote, "You will see that Skull and Bones is a fully fledged game," he said. "It's a very big game, and we feel that people will really see how vast and complete that game is. It's a really full, triple, quadruple A game that will deliver in the long run." I'm going to be real. I'm going to be real right now, Eve. I'm not pulling punches, okay? I've played a lot of Skull and Bones at this point. Way more than I thought I would play. Certainly before the game actually launched. And here's the deal. It's fine. It is a video game. But I actually went and made a list. There is not a single thing I can come up with that Skull and Bones does that it does better than any other game. Like, there's literally nothing it is the best at. And that's already a problem for a $70 game. In my view, if you're going to charge $70, if you're going to charge full price, there needs to be at least a theory that our game does X better than anybody else. That could be just, hey, we're like, excuse me, we're a pirate game and we're the best pirate game that is currently available. Okay, that could be a compelling reason to get it for $70, right? Or it could be, hey, we're coming out with Space Marine 2 and our $70 game, I think it's $70. It's the best like cinematic Warhammer game on the market. That alone, reason enough for a lot of people to get it. But with Skull and Bones, I can't come up with a single thing it does best. Like pirate games, I honestly think Sea of Thieves is just more fun most of the time. I think it's a better cooperative pirate game as well. It has a lot more content as far as I've been able to deduce after playing a lot of Skull and Bones and a lot of Sea of Thieves. So all of that's leaning in favor of Sea of Thieves. Graphically, it's not like Skull and Bones is a slacker, but it's also not like, I don't think it's the best looking game out there. And in terms of overall design, it's clear that this is like, it's a game that's been in development hell for a long time. There's a lot of weird remnants of old design philosophies and stuff. like combat wise, again, I think Sea of Thieves ship combat is just frankly better, and it's more engaging and interesting because it's very collaborative. Like you have to work together on reloading cannons and angling the ship properly and adjusting the sails and the speed and everything. There's a lot that goes into it, but it becomes a sort of dance when you have a team that's working together really well on a big ship in Sea of Thieves. With Skull and Bones, you just kind of swing around and it's like a clunky tank mini game in another video game. Like it just doesn't do anything that great. So I think it's just tough to charge $70 when other games do literally every single part of your game better. It's tough to understand why this needs to be full price. Now, I do think there are people that will play it with like Ubisoft Plus, because I believe it's included in that, and they'll probably have a good time. For like $15 a month, you pay $15, play this for a month, you could probably have some fun with it. But I think it's just another game example of a game that hasn't earned its monetization. Just like we were saying earlier, where Helldivers 2, their CEO of the company, said that games have to earn the right to monetize. You have to earn that money, the extra money, from players. And honestly, once you've earned it, they'll just start throwing it at you. Like I said in my example of The Witcher 3, where I just started buying copies of the game for my friends because I wanted to support them because I love the game so much. But with Sea of Thieves, it feels like they haven't earned it yet. The game isn't even out yet, but they're like, players will see that, you will see. Not like you haven't seen. This isn't established, but you will see that Skull and Bones is a full-fledged game. It's a very big game. We feel that people will really see how vast and complete the game is. After they spend $70, they'll see how big it is. And to be fair, and like just to shut this down, I've actually been surprised at how small the game is. Like, it's not actually. Did I say Sea of Thieves when I meant Skull and Bones? Sorry. Yeah, sorry. All of these pirate games that start with S's, it's. Thank you for putting up with me and my brain fog. But with all this, like, I've been surprised at how small the game feels. It doesn't feel like a vast ocean. Honestly, Assassin's Creed Odyssey feels way bigger, and it might actually be way bigger. Plus, that game has all of this other stuff that it gives you. So, again, it's tough to find something that Skull and Bones does best. I can't think of a single thing. So I would fully expect that this game, when it releases on February 16th, player numbers are probably a poopy. And I would not be surprised at all if it ends up on a Game Pass within by the summer, honestly. I would not be shocked at all if at like the Xbox show in June, it's announced Sea of Thieves coming to Game Pass. That wouldn't shock me at all. And honestly, maybe it stands a chance. Now, they might not let them do that since they have Sea of Thieves and they don't want them to like step on each other's toes. But honestly, I don't think this game is much of a threat to Sea of Thieves. So at the end of the day, they've already been very clear. They don't expect this to actually make much money, if any. To be more specific, I think what they said specifically was that they do not expect this to recoup its development cost. So they don't expect it to make any money. In terms of revenue, of course, they're hoping for a good chunk of change with the $70 price tag, but I think there's probably maybe 2,500 to 5,000 people that try this game. Like, it's going to sell very, very poorly. And it's too bad, but it's just after a game's been in development for a decade, and it's announced and then re-announced and restarted in development all this time, like time and time again, eventually players are just going to check out. And, 10 years ago, this game, if it were to drop, I think would do very well. But now with like Sea of Thieves, with many other live service games that have fuller offerings, I just think it's going to be tough for it to really compete and stand on its own, unfortunately. But I mean, then the Sea of Thieves, or rather the Skull and Bones tale, is going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end. Like, what are we going to talk about anymore? we'll have nothing to talk about anymore. It's like an end of an era, basically. It was supposed to drop like a year after Black Flag. Yeah, like this game was supposed to come out back when like Obama was in the middle of his second term. like this was supposed to launch on the PS4 and Xbox One. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. It's been in development for a minute. So yeah, that's what it's gonna be. Ubisoft just needs to make a Black Flag sequel. Well, so what they're gonna do is this same team that's putting out Obama delayed. Thanks, Obama. Yeah. what they're now having this team do that's putting out Sea of Thieves, they are being tasked with remaking Black Flag. This has already been rumored and confirmed. So their next project is to remake Black Flag using all of the assets and stuff they built for Skull and Bones. So their hope is that they can at least get something out of it. They can use all of the resources and improved water tech and graphics and stuff like that, all the assets they built. They can just put those into the Black Flag remake, and maybe it ends up being really good. This studio previously has done like support stuff for Assassin's Creed, so it's not like they're totally unfamiliar with the franchise, but it's going to be interesting to see if that actually holds up, because can you imagine if it takes them another 10 years to get that out the door? Oh man. Yeah, Leo, I chickened out, and plus my wife made a few comments that she didn't like the hair being being very long. So plus my the barber that cut my hair, he was like, I don't know what your last stylist did, because like the left side of my head was a solid like 4 to 5 inches longer than the right side. He's like, I think he was cutting it that way because he knew that you like to swoop it over that way, so he wanted the hair to kind of lay more like that. But he's like, it's really strange because this is the kind of cut we would give you if you were like balding and you needed to do a comb over. It's just kind of weird. And he's like, and plus it's making it grow in really awkwardly and strangely. Like it just isn't growing in evenly because your hair's so off kilter. So he evened it out, and he's like, if you want to grow your hair out now, you can do that. But he's like, it would have been very, very weird looking for a while unless you evened it out all the way across. Yeah. How did you not notice that? Well, I did notice, like, there would be moments, like, if you tried to pull bangs down, like, my bangs would go like that. I mean, they'd, like, cut across. They'd shear across. And it's because, like, when you swooped it over to the side or did, like, a pompadour and, like, put it back and up, then it worked. Like, all the hair swooshed back and it looked fine. But if you did literally anything other than that move with your hair, you looked homeless. Yeah, very emo. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So the answer for why I gave up on cutting my hair or growing my hair out is because I'm too weak. I'm not strong enough. I'm not strong enough. Okay. But dude, for real, what are we going to talk about when Skull and Bones is out? What are we even going to talk about? There'll be nothing left. Oh, did we hit our funding goal for the video? Ah, we're close, fam. We're close. We're trying to raise some money on this video. I tossed in $100 before the video went up. So we've raised another 216. So, I mean, that's not bad. I mean, that's $316 more than the NCMEC had a week ago. But it'd be nice if we could get it, like, to the threshold. That'd be nice. But what are you going to do? Okay. New kid, as someone with long hair, you have to not care for at least a year. The pandemic was how I hid from the public during the midway point. That's the thing. Everybody's like, it is an awkward phase through and through. You have to just embrace it. You're going to look homeless, and that's okay. The one thing they say is they're like, if you're not a hat guy, become a hat guy, and then you can get across the finish line more easily. But you have to, like, I mean, it's not easy. Like, I'm not a hat guy. I don't normally wear hats. So I'd have to become a beanie dude. And I don't know if I can become a Beanie Dude. Like, do I have the strength? Can I do it? I don't know. Oh wait, dude. Dragon's Dogma 2 is on the RE engine? What? I didn't know that. Oh, you know what? Actually, I just had this pop up. So, for the youngins out there, okay? There are youngins out there. I know this is shocking to all of us, but there are people in this community that are newer to the industry that might not remember some of the games, some of the flops from years past. And one of those games from years past was Anthem. And Anthem was a game that had a lot of potential, I think. I mean, a lot of people saw this game and thought that it looked really, really cool. I think this is from 5 years ago, June 9th of 2018. 3.1 million views from E3 2018. And it was like Frostbite engine. It looked graphically really, really cool. And they show this stuff where there's just straight up Iron Man gameplay where you can fly around and you're completing missions with friends and teammates all in here. And there's these big environments that you're shooting through, fighting waves and waves of enemies. Not a bad idea. In concept, I can see why this was like an interesting pitch. I can see why some people were looking at this and be like, this could make lots of money. It makes sense, right? Especially you see these big monsters fighting tons of these out in the world. Could be super cool. I'm a firm believer that one of the easiest ways they could have like helped Anthem pop off is if they just went back, because this is something I still see people using in like thumbnails and stuff for this game. If they had just reworked this, and so it was basically Monster Hunter, but with these flying javelins, I think it could have done very well. If it, instead of fighting waves and waves of enemies, was about hunting down like these ethereal, super powerful, not even semi, just super powerful enemies and creatures, where you could have them themed around different animals. So you could have one that's themed around like the baboon, and so he swings around, jumps off cliffs and stuff. That could be super cool. You have one that's themed around like a snake, so it's just a gigantic snake monster. There's a lot of cool stuff you could have done with it that I think would have at least made it more compelling. And then you could do scalable difficulties, just like, you know, Monster Hunter, or, you know, if you're seeking master rank, or even like Helldivers 2, where it's got like 9 tiers of difficulty if you want to just keep cranking it up higher and higher for more and more challenge. So there's a lot of ways they could have done it, but like I think I saw one of these guys, maybe, I think, and even then that might be a constructed memory from this trailer. I don't even know if I ever saw one of these for sure. But with the movement, with the graphical quality, with the environments, I think there was a lot of potential here. But the problem is when the game actually came out, there just wasn't that much to do. Like, you'd run around, fight some waves of enemies, and then you go like clear an objective, and then you go back home. And like, this was basically the whole thing. And it was never that thrilling or exciting. It wasn't particularly difficult. It was just a thing. Like, it was just a kind of at its core unremarkable. And I mean that in the pure sense of the word, where there just wasn't much to remark on. Like, there wasn't much to say. It's like, oh, it's really pretty. The first time you're playing it, it looks really cool. Even today, I think this game looks really good. But it just wasn't able to put anything that interesting together. And that's the worst thing, as I've said before, the worst thing that can happen to a live service game is for it to be unremarkable, for you to have nothing to say about it, for you to just not even want to talk about it. For Starfield, even people who don't like that game like talking about that game. It's the remarkable thing about that game, is that even those that don't like it like talking about it. And that's a very special place to be in. Not many games are like that. But for games like Anthem, for games like Suicide Squad, there are some games that come out and just nobody cares. From the outset, everybody's like already kind of done with it. Yeah, The Last of Us 2 is another great example where somebody, like, even the people that hate it love talking about how much they hate it. You know, it's just funny. It's just funny. Man, do I need to go to the doctor? It's like very tight in my chest, like right there, right on the stupid. It's very tight, right on the stupid. I'll tell you what. Oh, it's killing me. Oh, and it's like you got fluid in your lungs and you want to cough it out, but it doesn't ever go anywhere, and you can't take a full breath because you're at capacity. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Anyway, this side-by-side comparison, though, is Anthem during E3 presentations versus retail. This is from Nick930. Did a comparison 4 years ago comparing the E3 2017 reveal and the final retail product that launched in early 2019. So this is from launch, comparing what they showed to what is actually here. Let's see what he said back then. Because when I look back, I remember it looking pretty much just as good as it did at E3, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Direct Comparison. In today's episode, we're looking at the recently released Anthem and seeing how it compares to its initial 2017 E3 gameplay debut. For this video, I'll be running Anthem on the PC with an RTX 2080 Ti, an i7 8700K processor, and 32GB of RAM. All the game's graphical settings are running at the highest options, but I will be disabling the motion blur setting to provide more clear images. Also, bear in mind that the footage on the left will appear blurrier because of both motion blur and the YouTube compression. And to help keep this organized and simple to follow, I'm just going to run straight through the original E3 reveal and compare everything one scene at a time.
Definitely a lot more post-processing effects. You can see a lot. There's like lens flares. There's all sorts of stuff that doesn't seem to be in the retail.
Putting out things like lighting, textures, and most of all, changes made to the game world, which there's quite a few of. So let's jump right into it with our introductory sequence at Fort Tarsis. In the E3 demo, the player reaches out and pulls a red cloth out of the way to unveil a bustling market scene with several NPCs and impressive display of lighting and shadows. In the final retail version, there is no cloth doorway, and instead, a large wooden door is used to access the same area. The Bazaar has had its number of NPCs reduced substantially, and their
Dude, it's not even close. It's not even close, dude. Come on. Come on. You know what you did. You know what you did. Come on, look at that. So, density has plummeted. There's also a lot of haze effects. There's like volumetric lighting where like the light, the God rays that come through like these cables up top, I think they're cables. I guess maybe it's wood. It looks like similar assets were used because you see like here with these archways, it looks like it's the same asset, but like the wood or paneling, whatever these are, weren't extended out, so like they cut it very, very small. Other than that, like I'm trying to spot similar assets. I don't even see the same assets being used. Maybe these bundles of like baskets of apples are the same thing right here and here. But I mean, it's clear that they changed this up a lot.
Animations have been simplified as well. The various smaller objects around this market have also been removed, including many of the extra cables, baskets, and bowls that help to enhance the scene. And the overall size of the market has also been reduced. The lighting has also been downgraded by a large margin, with much less bloom, weaker global illumination, and less volumetric light. The gigantic looming strider that stomps into the scene in the E3 demo is now completely stationary in the final retail game. And the cloth simulation from
I forgot that thing was even in that trailer. But it's still there. He just doesn't move. He just stands there.
Weaker global illumination and less volumetric light. The gigantic looming strider that stomps into the scene in the E3 demo is now completely stationary in the final retail game. And the cloth simulation from the various stalls in Bazaar has been reduced, with the edges of the cloth not moving nearly as much as before. The scene feels less cinematic and far less impressive as a result. As the player moves down the busy street, a character walks out from between the stands and begins talking to the player. Not only do NPCs not act this dynamically in the final game, but this character, Paxley, does not exist at all in the retail.
Oops.
In fact, his mission, Hell or High Water, which is used throughout this E3 demonstration, does not exist. It's likely this mission was created early on to help showcase what this game was all about, but it was removed after the full narrative and open world had been properly developed. In the retail game, players will communicate with multiple NPCs in this area, and accept various contracts before going into the open world environment. Characters require you to approach them and won't move around the environment like what was suggested in 2017, removing a bit of that dynamic feel that the reveal had. After accepting the mission, the player then moves to the Javelin platform. There's been a few changes to this area as well. First, the platform has been rotated slightly, making the stairs appear in line with the bazaar's main walkway. There's a few more NPCs working in the final retail version, but instead of operating on actual javelins, they're just repairing the stations themselves. The engineer that works on your javelin has also been changed. Originally, this character was wearing overalls with a headlamp and short hair, and despite not saying anything for the brief time she's on screen, she seemed to have more personality than what we ended up with. The final model looks fine and has some incredible detail, but the outfit design feels far less inspired and comes off as generic.
Yep.
Alright, so now we have the javelin itself. Bear in mind that because the platform is rotated slightly, the Ranger javelin is not in the exact same position, so the lighting is a bit different. But I think it's safe to say that the lighting in the E3 demo is just superior in the shot. The darker background helps to set the foreground apart and draws focus more appropriately than the final retail version.
There's also a lot more shadow, more contrast and everything. It just looks good. It's like with Gotham Knights, where everything in that game, was just so flat and like even the darkest darks were still pretty bright. Like it was just a whole thing. It was crazy.
As for the textures and javelin design, they're pretty darn close. In fact, some of the textures as the player climbs into the suit are identical, only that they appear more crisp and higher res in the final retail version. Now that the player is in the javelin, a sequence plays out with the player slowly emerging from the fort in their new suit, which was likely used as a transitionary sequence as the game loaded. However, the final retail version does not feature the sequence, and instead gives the player a menu with options for which mission they'd like to play and if they'd like to invite friends to join them. After confirming their selection, the game then shifts to a standard loading screen and cuts to the javelin smashing into the ground at whichever checkpoint that the player chose. Here, we finally get to see the outdoor environment and just how much it has been reduced in scope for the final version of the game. Don't get me wrong, the final retail version still looks gorgeous in pretty much every aspect, but there's no doubt at all that the game was initially going to be far more ambitious.
It is one of those things where it's like, the game looks good. Just doesn't look that good. You know, it's like, it's the unfortunate thing with these companies that unfortunately like over or maybe expect too much out of their team or engine or whatever. Like they just start to overpromise and then underdeliver. And what they deliver is still remarkable. Like Anthem to this day, I think still looks really good, but it wasn't this good. Even seeing this trailer today, like, yeah, I think you could get this working on modern hardware. Because bear in mind, like this was still technically a PS4 and Xbox One game. Like this was running on 2013 hardware. And considering that, this is pretty impressive, you know, that it still looks this good. But it's why it's so important to just manage those expectations. A lot of video game marketing just comes down to people saying too much or showing something they shouldn't have shown. Like that, it's just so consistent that this happens time and time again, where people's expectations get out of whack, either because things were not said that would have alleviated those false expectations, or because things were said that created those false expectations to begin with. It's one of my frustrations with like Todd Howard, where he could have come out and been extremely clear with the audience and just been like, hey, listen, the planets, you cannot like fly your ship. Instead, we had to like hound him. Journalists had to ask him questions constantly before he finally answered questions about traversal on planets, saying there's no in-planet flight. That only happened like a month or two before launch. And then like after all of that, it was like also discovering the full size of the playable areas when you would land on planets. There's only 4 at a time. If you have more than 4 landing spots on a planet, then they start to clear off and you can't go to the one you already explored. It just is lost forever. Like there's so many consistent things that happen time and time and time again. where I'm like, if you were just more transparent and clear with the audience that was starting to build false expectations, you could have like alleviated many of these frustrations that players eventually had because they expected something that wasn't there. Very few studios can keep mum on details and then still deliver something that meets those expectations. Rockstar being probably the main one that somehow magically they can put out a trailer, not say much about the game, not explain too much about it, let people speculate wildly, and they still blow everybody away and exceed expectations because they're just basically magicians at the end of the day. It's crazy. It's crazy. You can look it up, Luke, but I think Anthem came up for review by EA as a candidate for re-release similar to No Man's Sky's comeback, big rework and all that, but EA didn't greenlight it. Find article. I do remember that. I do remember that being a thing. They were talking about doing a full reboot. They were talking about trying to build it into the game that they originally intended it to be, doing like Anthem 2.0. But at the end of the day, the player base just wasn't there. And they thought that even if they got the game finally there, their market research was saying that it wasn't going to perform as well as it needed to anyways. Because they needed to recoup the development costs of the initial like 1.0 version that we got. And then they'd need to recoup the dev costs of the 2.0 reboot, basically. And that just, they didn't think that they could manage that, which honestly is potentially fair. I mean, it's a lot to ask one game to make up the development costs of basically two. So I can understand why they thought it wasn't going to work out.
In fact, you can see just how ambitious based on the fake backdrop that they used as a placeholder for their open world. The valley below shows a river that would likely have taken a few minutes to reach had it existed in the final game. Unfortunately, the valley has had its distances reduced by a large margin, with this river appearing much closer, and the overall draw distance has been scaled back considerably. With this river,
it is like this is what excited me about Anthem when I first saw the trailers, though. It's like you looked out there, and the thought was that, hey, if you want to fly your javelin out to that little cliff edge and stand there, right where my mouse is, you can do that. All of this is open to you. It's a vast world to explore. But instead, there are invisible walls everywhere. And that was what was really, really frustrating. And it's another example of if you give players a tool, I think, what was it? Was it in the Last of Us documentary that they said it? I think it was in the making of the Last of Us documentary. Maybe it wasn't. But in a recent thing we watched, it was a game developer saying that if you give players a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I think that that's accurate. If you give players a tool, they will start to look for ways to use that tool everywhere. So if you give them a flying robo suit, they will look for ways to use it everywhere. They will look for ways to fly off into the distance over here onto that cliff face. They'll look for ways to get out and escape this. Like, they will find a way to use it. And the moment that there's a limitation, it's disappointing. Like, I think players will be more frustrated if you give them, say, in like an open world game, if you give them a flying, like the ability to fly, give them a plane, and then they take off and they can't go more than 1,000 feet off the ground because the skybox is clipped and, you know, you just can't go higher than that. I think players will be more frustrated by that than if they couldn't fly at all, because it's an introduction of a restriction. Like, it's supposed to be that now you're free to fly, but instead all the player can think about is how restricted they are. And unfortunately with Anthem, a similar thing happened where you had this flying javelin, and instead of having this massive world to just explore and enjoy, it constantly felt like you were being held back and limited by these big invisible walls that were just arbitrarily placed there, which I think is a difficulty for every game designer. Because is it practical to have all of this available to the player to explore? Not really. Like, would that be a good use of studio resources to develop it so you can just go anywhere you can see over here? Maybe not. Like, maybe it just didn't make sense to do that and instead have more high quality, smaller spaces. But when you give players a sweeping view of this, and this is where you start missions, you hop into your javelin on this platform and you look out at all of that, the natural impulse for players is, I want to go over there. I want to explore that. That's where I want to go. But they're immediately greeted with a restriction. Nope, can't. You know, it's something designers have to really think about. because restrictions always feel worse than freedoms. Like feel good. I think a small restriction outweighs a big freedom because players just naturally remember the bad. I mean, we all do this with everything. Like, you can probably remember a bad time you had at a restaurant 5 years ago, but do you remember every time you went to a similar restaurant and had a fine time or a good time? You probably not. Those don't really stick in your memory, but you remember the bad times. You remember the times that stuck out because they were different and were frustrating, you know? It's just natural in us, you know, it's something deep within us. I think that's why BG3 triumphs so much. Almost anything you can think of, you can do. Yeah, well, exactly, JS Man. Like, player freedom is in and of itself exciting. And once players realize that if they can come up with a way to do this, it could work, I think players immediately connect with that. And that becomes a compelling reason to play it by itself. It's why I love, no spoilers, of course, but it's why I love the Forgotten City. If you've not played the Forgotten City, fantastic little game. Originally started as a mod for Skyrim way back when, but it was put together by basically 3 people. A lot of the work was done by just one dude, and it's in its barest form, it is a game based around a time loop mechanic, kind of like Deathloop or Groundhog Day, that kind of thing. But if you can think of a creative solution, they've thought of it. And that's what I'll say. Like, I discovered basically a secret ending just thinking, I wonder if I could do this. I wonder if they consider that. And they do. Like, there's so many cool things they did in that. And it's usually very cheap. It's sometimes on Game Pass. I don't think it is right now. But if you have not played The Forgotten City, you absolutely should go and check that out. So highly encourage you to do that. Let's see. Blue Kaka, thank you also for the 2. One of the saddest E3s versus retail was BioShock Infinite. Yeah, that one changed a lot. That changed a lot. Also, Stefan, thank you. Who should purchase BioWare from EA? I used to think Microsoft, but I'm not sure now with Game Pass and current context. Should Sony give it a thought? I don't think they would sell it, honestly. I think they would be more likely to gut it and then retain the IP. I just don't think they would gut it, or sell it, rather. So I don't think they would ever sell it. And as for, like, if I could do it, I don't think what's best for BioWare is to sell. I think they just need to get back on their feet and figure out what the hell they're doing, because they've struggled to get, like, just to make games their fans want. And, like, part of it, I think, is that they got a little distracted. They did Mass Effect Andromeda, which was a buggy mess, and then they moved over to, like, of course, Anthem, which was like a live service game that flopped. And so, like, they've just had a couple of big speed bumps, but I'm hoping Dreadwolf kind of overcomes that and they can manage to pull it together. That's the hope, at least. Philip Smith, also thank you for the 10. Did you see Skull and Bones CEO defend $70 because it's a quadruple A game? Oh yeah, we did talk about that earlier. Absolute madness. And just like MMO RPG Al, sorry, the font's really big. Yeah, Al. Thank you for 4 months of membership. I don't think any game outside of GTA 6 is a quadruple A game. Yeah, that's what Eve said. He's like, it's a quadruple A game, which I think is pretty much anything over $100 million. I think that's probably the cutoff. Over 100 million to 150 million is probably quadruple A. It's not even like a full AAA game anymore. It's even beyond that. And a lot of games are getting to that price point. So he's right. They probably have spent quadruple A money on it. At this point, they've spent well over $200 million making Skull and Bones, but that doesn't mean that players should buy it for that. You know, it's not the player's fault that you wasted so much money on it, you know? Simon, also, thank you for the super chat. Any thoughts on the new Transformers game? Oh yeah, that's what I mentioned. 3MG also said for $2. Thank you, my friend. It's a Bumblebee Transformer game dropping. Oh, interesting. I've not heard of it. I must have missed it, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't really seen it. I feel like I'm missing out. I was also going to see. Thank you also to Passmonin595 for subbing with Prime. Thank you, my friend. And Barrett the Ferret. That's funny. Resubbed with Prime also. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Okay. Okay, let's move this over here. Okay. Here we go.
Appearing much closer, and the overall draw distance has been scaled back considerably.
Yeah, this makes you really appreciate how vast the original Vision was. Like, yeah, if you want to free fall down there, it's going to take you probably a minute of free falling. And then with you, like your rockets jettisoning you down, like that's probably in maybe 30 seconds to reach the bottom of that ravine. Whereas the final retail version, it's like, oh, it's like a few hundred feet. You'll get there very quickly. It might have been that they just tested it and they're like, honestly, players didn't like having this big of a space to traverse. Very possible that that's what it is, but it still feels like a big old downgrade, I'll tell you what.
The design of the environment has changed a great deal, with the large mesa to the right now appearing much closer and no longer featuring its multiple waterfalls. Even small details like the waving flags on the platform have also been removed. For lighting, I tried my best to match up the time of day by waiting for the sun to move into approximately the same position as the demo, but they still look very different with much less global illumination and accurate volumetric lighting in the final retail version. As the player jumps off the cliff, you can more clearly see the massive valley below. The final game, however, shows the true scope of the open world, with large cliff sides, trees, and waterfalls, with lots of vertical gameplay opportunities. The tunnel that the player flies through on the left has been reduced in size, and the herd of stampeding animals are no longer present. The large, dense jungle area has also been changed, almost to the point where I didn't recognize where I was when I started playing. I eventually found a familiar landmark, this broken stone arch, and it became immediately clear what had happened to the environment that they had created. A ton of the trees have been removed, in addition to various ferns, shrubs, grass, and broken tree trunks. The area itself looks barren now, and the encounter with a large monster near the ruins no longer happens. It appears that a lot of the more dynamic encounters with creatures and characters have been removed, with special animations like this one no longer occurring in the more open-ended parts of the experience. After this encounter with the large creature, the player then jets off along a river and runs into a random encounter with a group of scars near the stone archway. I've never run into scars near this archway in the final game, but instead I occasionally ran into these larger insect-like enemies instead. From here, the player dives under the water, revealing a large crevice and a bit of sea life. This still occurs the same way in the final game, though the coloration has changed slightly, and the depth of field effect has been reduced to make distant objects underwater more visible. As the player begins to emerge, you can see bullets whizzing by in the water, and again, I'm not sure if this still happens because I was never able to get scar enemies to spawn along the side of this river. But what I did notice is that the reflective surfaces no longer properly reflect light from player-made explosions and various gunshots. I tried multiple explosives on these enemies in approximately the same location, but never once managed to replicate the reflective properties of the water in the E3 demo. After the fight, the player looks off to the left at a cave that they plan on exploring later. This cave doesn't feature the same blue glow, but is otherwise mostly the same. Again, you'll notice significantly less vegetation here and lower quality lighting, but the general layout is still very similar. Finally, we get to the main mission objective, where a large strider walks into the valley and collapses with an impressive explosion. Unfortunately, in the final game, since this mission no longer exists, the strider just stands here and does nothing. It's possible this sequence happens during a different mission later in the game, but I haven't found anything similar up to this point. And the fact remains that the original mission that featured this event has been removed. I also found another group of enemies and tested the explosive payloads on them to see how they compared visually, but unfortunately, these also look a bit less impressive. There's a nice amount of particle effects associated with them, and it still looks really cool, but the original E3 demo did feature more realistic smoke effects and fireballs. Overall, I'm pretty disappointed with the overwhelming amount of downgrades that have occurred since the
What's amazing is that like literally every cool thing that happens in the original gameplay trailer is not there anymore. Like the cool initial reveal of the marketplace gone. This huge vista that's gorgeous, it's totally redone and made worse in like every way. The big like monster encounters that happen right as you enter, right, where was it? Like right here, no, it was before that. The big monster dude. This guy. Yeah, this
one no
completely
longer
removed.
in the more open-ended parts of the experience.
And like, it's like they did a little experiment where they're like, let's put a bunch of cool stuff in and then go back in and manually remove every single one of them. like manual. Let's just go through each and everything that people would have been excited for. And let's just cut that out. It's why, like, if you guys remember God of War, it was the announcement trailer. If you've never seen, E3 2016. If you've never seen
18.
Raising Kratos, it's very, very cool because you see the behind the scenes of all of this stuff happening. But one of the things that they did is like they go right into gameplay and they show this. And what they described in Raising Kratos is that a lot of these things were not working like systematically yet. They also described this in the making of The Last of Us Part 2, where they have some of these things that are very scripted and very intentionally like designed to play out this way, but they weren't fully working in the video game. So like here, this sequence is different in the final game. It's very, very different. But you come up here, you cross this bridge. This area is still in the game, but like this part's blocked off. I think is what it's been a minute since I played the opening of this game, but it doesn't play out this way where you're walking across the bridge and then this happens. It's been changed. But it's been changed because, for one, players already saw this, so they didn't want them to just fully expect how this would play out. But then when they actually put it together and provided the final product in the game, it actually runs like this. It actually works. Oh yeah, the demo expired. That's what it is. The demo of Islands of Insight expired because the game's out. Get hit by the pillar and it's actually working. So like this wasn't working in the full game that they had at that point, the build of the game. It was something they kind of designed for the trailer, but this gave them an idea of like, this is what we need to turn the whole game into. This is the vision for the game. In the same way that that original, like The Last of Us 2 gameplay trailer, this one, they also just described this in the making of The Last of Us Part 2, how it transitions to gameplay. And they had all of this stuff built out, but they didn't actually have it working like in the actual game. Like it wasn't all tied together yet. They had little things like the example they used in the documentary was crawling under the truck. So like here, they knew they wanted this in the game where you could be pulled out from underneath the truck and then you'd have to defend yourself. But they didn't have that working yet. They still put it in the trailer, but they said, this is badass and we will make sure that this badass thing gets in the final version of the game working systematically. So it can work in any level. When you crawl under a car, if somebody gets alerted to you under the car, they can pull you out. Pop goes the weasel. So like this was specifically scripted that should be pulled out, and later they got it working systematically. But when they released this trailer, it wasn't yet. And so I think it's important to understand that with a lot of these game trailers and stuff, you'll see something cool like this in a trailer for a game that's years out. It might not be working in the actual game yet, but they understand this is the really cool thing we showed. We need to provide this to players. With Anthem, they had a lot of cool stuff like this, and they didn't end up actually delivering any of it other than flying javelins around. But everything else was basically cut. So it would be like if in The Last of Us Part 2, they dropped this trailer and there's no grabbing people. There's no gore effects. There's no vaulting over countertops. There's no quick crafting. Let's just say the haze effect and the fog is completely cut from the game. Like all of these cool things you're seeing are just all cut. That's basically what happened with Anthem. And it's unfortunate because I think the original vision of the game was interesting and was compelling, which is why the game generated interest when they announced it. But they weren't able to deliver on pretty much any of it. Because again, every cool thing that happened in that Anthem trailer ended up being cut and was not in the final product. Whereas for The Last of Us Part 2, everything you're seeing here is in the final game. There's a couple of little bitty things like I think the resolution that they're rendering here is higher than probably what we got in the final version of the game. At least it seems to me that this recording is of a better quality than you typically got on a PS4 Pro, for example. Plus 2016, I don't think the PS4 Pro is even out yet. So like maybe they were playing this on a like dev kit of the PS4 Pro, but I'm not sure. Well, no, it's 2018. I was still thinking God of War 2016. So this is 2018. So the PS4 Pro was out. So it was out. Pop goes the Weasel. Yeah, like that. So you straight up, oh God. It would be like if they showed this off. Oh, I went all the way back. God damn it. It would be like if you're playing Anthem, or you see this trailer for Anthem, and there's a really cool thing like explosive arrows that blow somebody up into pieces, and then it's just not there. In the final game, you launch the explosive, and they just kind of flop over, and there's no effect. But in the trailer, there's a lot more going on. Many more moving parts. See what I did there? See what I did there? Lots of moving pieces at play here. So with all this, I just think I think it's unfortunate that they were not able to actually tie all of these pieces together for Anthem, because I think the game had so much potential. But going back and watching these trailers from like the announcement at E3 2017, showcasing some of it, it's like, seriously, if you went through each and every piece of what was cool in those trailers, every cool piece has been removed, like every single one. And it's just unfortunate, but that's why the game failed to live up to those expectations, because they literally didn't deliver on anything that they promised, which is a problem. Okay. Let's see. Should we also... They're doing server maintenance on Helldivers 2, apparently. Otherwise, I would jump into that, but maybe we'll give it another couple minutes. Okay, so Dragon's Dogma 2. Digital Foundry Clips is saying that this might be the next level or next evolution for Capcom's RE engine. I guess this is just me not, I guess, realizing. I knew it was Capcom. I didn't realize that they were giving Dragon's Dogma 2 the RE engine. I'm always just stuck thinking RE engine, it's for Resident Evil, and that's it. But I'm always like surprised when I hear that it's being used for something else. So apparently it's running on that. And they're going to explain why it's an evolution of it.
Another game that caught our attention at State of Play 2024 had to be Dragon's Dogma 2 from Capcom. Obviously, we're looking at an evolution of the RE engine here. It's doing things... Well, this is the great thing about RE, right? Which is that as new games come along that sort of push boundaries in different genres, RE has to evolve to accommodate that. And we're seeing that again here with Dragon's Dogma 2, and it looks absolutely terrific. Oliver, your thoughts, please.
I know some people got upset with one of the Luke Stevens live clips we did, where I was pointing out that like some of the recording quality from IGN specifically was really poor, and it made the game look bad. I'm not saying that Dragon's Dogma 2 will necessarily look bad. Well, my point with all that stuff was that IGN's recordings that they were presenting on their channels were at like 1080p maybe. It was very, very low quality recordings, low bit rate 1080p too. Like they're just very, very poor recordings. And so it makes the game look worse than it actually does. In these recorded like trailers that they released during like the summer showcases and stuff, I think the game looks really, really good. It's just very stark seeing these trailers that look very sharp, very good. And then they do all of this promotional stuff with IGN that looks way worse because the recordings they're giving to IGN or that IGN is getting is really, really poor. It's crazy. Yeah, really low res video. It's very strange. And like, I do want to say this isn't always like an IGN. This isn't always the fault of, say, IGN. Sometimes it's that like when I go to preview events, this happened with, I think it was Skull and Bones at one point. No, it wasn't Skull and Bones. It was with another one like a while back. But there was a preview event where we played the game virtually, and then they recorded the gameplay on their end on the computer that was in Austin, Texas or whatever. And then later they sent the gameplay recording to me to edit the video with. So I could record straight off of my streamed gameplay, like basically capturing gameplay footage through xCloud. Let's see. Okay, Nikki she's okay. Yeah, Ori's okay. He's at they're at the doctor. He's getting his lungs checked. He's okay. Apparently, it's just a virus that I also apparently have. But he's okay. Good to hear. Good to hear. Baby's okay. So with all this, it's just sometimes the recording that they send you as the creator was captured poorly, because the person that's like setting up the settings for the capture event, they're not always like media or content creators. They're just like somebody in IT that quickly set like, oh, do high quality recording, 1080p, whatever. And they just go for it because the monitor they're playing on might be 1080p, or because they're just trying to save bandwidth or recording file sizes, whatever. They just set it for like 1080p and then they just call it good. But that doesn't always make the game look as good as it can. The one company that always seems to do a really good job of this, though, is like PlayStation. They always provide incredibly high quality assets because they want their games to look as good as possible. And I think that that's something that all of these companies need to make sure their marketing teams are doing is, if our game runs at 4K, only give creators 4K 60 footage. Even you can put it in your contracts. I've had like sponsorship deals. Like, you guys know, I've taken like I let brands or not brands, publishers sponsor like iTried videos, as long as I'm allowed to say whatever I want to say about the game. Like, sure, pay me and I'll share your game with my audience. I'm fine with that. Again, as long as I can say whatever I want to say. And with it, like, I've done deals like that where they have contractual requirements that I have to upload in 4K, that the gameplay has to be captured in 4K at 4K 60. And like, if you can't meet these bit rate requirements, they cut a portion of your fee. There's all sorts of stuff like that that comes into play with a lot of these companies. And it just seems like for Dragon's Dogma 2, there's been an issue where a lot of journalists have posted videos with horribly low quality footage, and it might be an issue of maybe just miscommunication. It might be just that the people making the videos are kind of tossing gameplay together. They don't think it's that big of a deal, but I think it is. Like, nowadays people are so nitpicky. If there's blurry footage of the game, they're going to assume that the game looks like crap because they've been burned so many times by companies that put forward trailers for games that look really good, like we just saw with Anthem in the last segment, where then they downgrade it. So people are just naturally, like, at this point, attuned to being screwed over by big companies. And you can't give anybody any ammunition, especially when it's something as easy as just providing higher resolution gameplay footage. So I want to be clear. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 looks really, really good. I think they have a problem where, for some reason, a lot of these big outlets are making it look way worse than it actually looks when you're playing it, because they're getting or using really low quality footage. It's weird.
Oliver, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I thought it looks fantastic. Like you said, it is basically, I mean, the first real proper current gen exercise of the RE engine, I'd have to imagine, in terms of the feature set. I think it does look quite a bit better than other RE engine titles, which have thus far been cross-gen titles to my recollection. So they've been a bit more restrained. And this looks really good. It is at 30 FPS, which I hope they do have a high frame rate mode in there because of the style of game this is. But outside of that, I mean, I think it looks
Do you think it's 30 or unlocked?
It's unlocked. And I can tell from this trailer. And so I played an hour of this game at TGS, and that was feedback I gave to them. Not that they would necessarily be able to. I don't know how much. Basically, I think this is a game that should have an optional frame rate cap.
Right.
Because the way it played then and the way it looks in this trailer, the frame rate's kind of all over the place, where it's anywhere from like the 20s up to 60. And that sucks. It does not feel good.
So John, who knows what he's talking about, he says he can tell from the trailers and stuff that at least the versions of the game that they're using for these promotional things are variable and are unlocked. I think that jives with what we've seen, where like some clips and some trailers look like it's running at 60, others look like they're crawling in the like mid 20s. It's very inconsistent. Some people have wondered if some trailers are being recorded in performance mode, others are being recorded in fidelity mode. he seems to think that it's just uncapped. Whatever the game's able to render at, the console will put out. I mean, in my personal experience, this is where I want to know from you, chat. Like, do you like it when the game is just totally uncapped and does whatever it can manage? And sometimes it's really high frame rate, other times it drops and crawls. Or do you prefer a more consistent frame rate? For me personally, I prefer a steady frame rate. I would rather play at a locked 30 than a 40 that sometimes goes to 50 and other times goes to like 25. I like it more locked and consistent. When it's inconsistent for me, it makes me like motion sick. I don't know what it is about my brain. It does not like frame rates constantly changing. Even if I'm playing like a really easy to run game or a really well optimized game on my like supercomputer that I have here, and it's going from like 120 frames a second down to 90 back to 120, that even makes my brain freak out. I can't handle that. So it worries me that he's saying it looks to his expert eye to be totally uncapped, and that he's giving them feedback at these events that they should probably give like a capped version to players, and they still have not clarified it. Because as of right now, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in chat, if like it seems to me that they have still not, and I can double check it here, they've still not confirmed if there's a performance mode or what the performance mode. I don't think that they've said how this game is running or what settings will be available to anybody. All of the recommended performance stats are like for running at 30 frames. So like even on Steam, the recommended hardware is based off of 4K 30 or 1080p 30. They aren't recommending it based off of higher frame rates, which makes me think that they're not expecting it to get that high. But it's going to be, I don't know. They still have not said anything, which to me, I think that is concerning. I would just rather them say, there's no performance mode, it's all uncapped. Or I'd rather them come out and say, on console, it's just performance mode. That's it, locked at 30. We experimented with the 60 frame version. It just wasn't working out, so we're going to delay that till after launch. If they just were clear and upfront, I think it would be great. But I don't like when companies are so wish-washy and non-committal with it. I understand it might still be in flux, but I think if you're going to ask people to like pre-order your game, or at least like plan on buying it, if not pre-ordering it, then you need to be a little more transparent. Similar things happened with Starfield, where people were wondering what the frame rate caps were going to be. And to their credit, they did come out and clearly say, we're targeting 30 FPS. There was a long build-up of them like kind of dancing around the topic before they just finally came out and said it. But as we saw, once they said it was 30, everybody was like, okay, bummer, whatever. And that's it. Like, you just have to be like, say what it is, lock it down. Some people will throw fits for a little bit, but then you can just move on. Everybody will kind of burn out on complaining about it.
And it lacks consistency. VRR might help some, especially on Xbox. Right? And is this coming to PC? This is coming to PC, right?
You'd expect so.
Yeah, so PC would probably be fine, but that's my only real complaint with everything that they've shown, is that the frame rate is just all over the place. And at the same time, one could argue that that's part of the Dragon's Dogma experience. So
it's not a desirable part.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
But maybe it's a throwback. Like, remember this, guys? Remember the frame rate?
Come on. Sorry, Oliver, you were in the middle of your observations there.
Yeah, I mean, scrolling through this trailer, it is more variable. It just looked like 30 to me because it is like hovering around roughly that point. But yeah, if this is unlocked, then that's not a great sign. And Capcom has a bit of a history with unlocked frame rates in games. I think even with VRR, this wouldn't be that great. It is quite a variable experience down and getting to certain lows that you don't really want to see in a title. So yeah, I hope they do fix that, or at least cap it, because on consoles,
optional.
Yeah, on consoles, I don't think that would make for too great of an experience.
So anything from an engine perspective, I mean, obviously the sort of wide open scope of it is pretty impressive. I mean, you know, what could I say? Character design, monster design, effects work. RE is just brilliant. It just seems to be getting better and better.
Yes, so I agree.
It is crazy what like the wide range of types of games that the engine is able to run. It's very, very impressive.
Rich, it is improving with each game, but the thing that really separates Dragon's Dogma 2, I think, from other RE engine games and games in general is the sort of the physicality of the battles. The creatures that you fight are often large, and we've seen plenty of large creatures in games before, right? It's not an uncommon thing, but I feel like in general, it's like they're just an object that's animated and they're placed inside of this map, and they have minimal impact on the environment around it, and the player's interaction with it usually amounts to doing swing animations and some basic sort of collision occasionally, and and that works well from a gameplay perspective. But this is a game that sort of the enemies very directly interact with the world. They break down trees, crumble buildings. You can climb on the enemies, mantle them. When you see there's like a griffin or some kind of creature that flies over the village at one point in the trailer here that takes down buildings with it, and it really feels physicalized in a way that reminds me actually of something like I guess The Last Guardian or Shadow of the Colossus kind of stuff, but with even more granularity, of course. Or that scene where there's like a large tusk creature swinging sort of a club in the middle of the forest, and you sort of see all the trees sort of bend and sway as he does it. I think it's the physicality of these interactions that really separate it from other action games.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And that's I think that's really difficult to pull off. Having multiple super detailed, well animated models interacting with one another in that way, that's hard to implement and not something we often see. So yeah, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, nobody's doubting that it's a heavy game to run. It's going to be a lot. There's a lot going on. There's a whole lot going on in this game, which is why it's so compelling, why people are so interested in it. But I do think it people expect a certain consistency of performance. I think PC gamers are more tolerant of iffy performance stats because it's like the understanding is if I want the game to run well on my PC, I need the better hardware. Like people understand that. But on console, for console players, there's an expectation that you're always going to at least meet, at the very least, steady 30. If you have to drop to 1440p to hit it, okay, like that's a bummer on modern hardware, but at least consistent 30. The second you start talking about games dropping down into the 20s, people start to get very much turned off. And the thing with this game is that it seems that it's very much like it in times it's up at 60, other times it drops down into the 30s, other times it's in the 20s. And this is something you can see by frame counting in the trailers that they've put out. Now, some of the trailers that they've put out have like 60 FPS modes or 60 FPS sequences that are super smooth, and then other moments are really, really slow and sluggish. It's going to be very, very... I'm going to be very interested to see if they have gone about polishing it up or what improvements they've been able to make, because I think the game looks great. I still think that this is a game that probably, when it launches, does okay, and then in the weeks following, clips of people fighting big monsters start to go viral. They start to go viral on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and everywhere. And at that point, I think the game starts to sell even better just through word of mouth. And at that point, it starts to really pick up steam. That's my expectation. It's my prediction. So that's where I'm at. I couldn't care less about 30 versus 60. Makes no difference in my enjoyment of the game. Yeah, I think for this type of game, it's not as important. Like for a third-person adventure game with like action, of course, within it, but it's at its core probably adventure more than anything else, with the big maps and everything and tons of monsters. I think 30 is tolerable. It's for like first-person shooters where I think going below 60 gets really rough for the modern gamer. A lot of people kind of expect 60 for shooters And I think part of that is like Call of Duty has kind of bred that expectation into them. And it's not a bad expectation to have. Like I think 60 for a first person shooter especially makes a lot more sense and greatly improves the player experience, like a lot. So okay. COD 2024. I haven't heard anything about it. Remember how excited I was at the reveal, or remember how excited I was at the reveal, waiting for ages. If they at least do what the sequel did, it'd be fine, but they improved so much on what was already there. On top looks like for Dragon's Dogma. Yeah. Oh, they have some cool monster reveals on the Dragon's Dogma site. Let's see. Official webpage. I was born in 17. I love cookies. I love cookies. Dragon's Dogma 2. Okay. Where do they have monster reveals? Action system, monsters. Face the monsters that inhabit this world. Okay, so drakes. A monster of the dragon family, the drake spits out powerful flames. It also possesses the intelligence to skillfully manipulate magic. If you encounter one, be prepared for an all-out battle. A Dullahan. It's a knight covered in a spiritual purple flame. Cradling his own head in his arm, he engages in deadly swordplay. With a firm stance in the dark, he transforms into a black mist and stalks the living. Oh, that's cool. That's just badass. That's cool. Let's see. A Talos. I wonder if he's principled. Introducing Talos, the bronze giant from the legends. Rising from the sea, its massive frame can walk over valleys with ease. Just like a divine punishment, it mercilessly brings chaos to the land. Dude, that thing's going to be crazy to fight. Jesus, where do you even start? I guess you'd probably have to climb it. Like jump on its leg and climb all the way up to its eye or something. I don't know how else you do it. A white, of course. A priest spirit that still holds a grudge, eventually becoming a monster. It hides in darkness, casting powerful spells in succession from the sky. It makes upfront fights difficult by wielding a huge amount of magic. I believe it. Or from a cliff. Yeah, I guess it was technically on a cliff. You could do that. Jump up. Something like that. There's also these like stakes in it. So maybe that's a mechanic too, where like you launch these somehow. I don't know. Okay. A knacker. They've got the knack. It's a type of goblin that wields a long weapon. They are agile on elevated terrain and good at raiding from higher ground. Underestimate their mobility and you may be easily overpowered. Yes, swarms. That is one thing that this game seems... They've primarily shown like 1v1 fights. They've not really shown a lot of like swarms that I remember. But yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's because when there's extra swarms, maybe the frame rate takes even more of a nosedive. I don't know. Minotaurs, of course, we've seen a handful of these. Ferocious and extremely fierce bull-headed monsters. A single hit from their battle axe or charge attack can be fatal. I believe it. Can you imagine if these things were real? Just imagine how much, like how horrifying a minotaur would actually be in real life. Like, it would be horrifying. I'm so glad that that's not a thing. Cyclops, monstrally strong one-eyed giants. They wield huge weapons with ease and won't back down from a fight. Strike their lone eye with ranged attacks or test your bravery by climbing and attacking the eye directly. For real, dude. I just love Cyclopses because it's, you know, the old tale is that the whole reason that Cyclopses were kind of developed as a concept was because they came across like elephant or mammoth skulls. And when you look at a mammoth skull, it kind of looks like it just has one big eye hole. And so you see like that mixed with the horns off the sides, you can start to kind of understand how somebody that would stumble on this skull if it was just the skull, might think that this was like a humanoid with just one big eye. When in reality, I mean, once you find the rest of the skull, or rest of the skeleton, it makes more sense what it is. But if you just found the skull, you could see this. I'm guessing it's probably like a wives' tale, or maybe not wives' tale. It's a misconception that that's actually how it started. But that's the thing. Like every history teacher I've ever had was like, and in Roman or Greek mythology, the Cyclops is there. And did you know how Cyclopses came to be? And who knows if it's actually true. What if it was a mammoth cyclops? Oh my god. Oh my god. Rattlers. These things look fun. Back seems to be covered in rocks. They appear on mountainous terrain and can be mistaken for a giant rolling boulder. Try to knock them down. Aim for the weak spots on their stomach. Just need some grenades. Choppers. Little fellers. Little goblins that lurk in the shadows of the deep forest. Griffins, these are the ones I'm excited for because these things just look badass. I've always loved griffins. I just think they're so cool. Let's see. Undead, of course. We got zombies. Some zombies appear in the darkness. They're vulnerable to fire and holy attacks. Skeletons perpetually wander in death, though they are nothing but bones. The curse placed upon them allows them to keep moving. Beware the fast movements, lest you wish to get hurt. Slimes, classic. Ogres. Formidable strength and liking for women whose smell it pursues relentlessly. Captured. I wonder if that applies to your party. If you have like a female pawn, do they pursue the female pawn over the male pawns? I wonder. It does? That's pretty trippy. That's cool. They do? That's crazy cool. I love things like that are like based in the lore and then actually apply in gameplay in almost like a practical way. Because if you were to do that, basically use one pawn as bait while all of the others swarm on the back end, like that could actually be really, really cool. That's super cool. Yeah, in the first gameplay they did that. That's awesome. I love that. Okay, golems. Oh, this is cool with like the faces in the stone. That's cool. Artificial life forms created by sorcerers made of strong, impenetrable rock structure that repels magic and physical attacks. The only way to halt its movement is to break the metals on its body. Shoot the purple glowing zits. You gotta do it. Oh, chimeras. These are just cool. Have they shown any gameplay of this? Excuse me. DD2 Chimera. I don't think so. Why is it so slow to load right now? I don't know. I've been having trouble with Chrome recently. I'll tell you what, it's been giving me trouble. Really sluggish. The chimeras look awesome. Saurians evolved from the lizard family. The scaly saurians mostly dwell near water, wield spear-like weapons. Dismembering their tails can weaken them and make them lose their will to fight. Oh, that's funny. Harpies, classic. You gotta love harpies. You gotta love them. Wolves, classic. Hobgoblins, my favorite type of goblin. Regular goblins, they hold nothing to hobgoblins, and that's it. And I know, like, there's probably some bigger, like, individual encounters, I would think, right? Because this seems like these are the kinds that you'll run into, like, out in the world. But I would imagine as part of, like, the main quest, there's some specialty built encounters. Like, there was the one where they said the Sphinx is going to be like very specifically hidden and not everybody is going to find it, which is kind of a cool concept where they're like, yeah, it's going to be hidden. Not everybody's going to find the Sphinx. And even then you have to complete these trials to basically unlock access to her. And I think they also suggested that there's a fight against her if you overcome it.
覗き込んでくるんですよね。
本当にそれでいいのって。それをやりたかったんです。
I love this stuff. I love it when there's stuff in a game that not everybody's gonna find. I think it's great. One of my favorite like moments early in my gaming career. Let me ask you, did any of you guys play Just Cause? Just Cause 2 specifically? Any of you guys, yeah? Do you guys remember this?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Rooster Teeth back in the day. Wow. Just Cause 2. On this island in like the far northwest of the map, there is a spot you can go to where there is like a guy that runs around and just emits a ton of smoke. And he can't be killed. He's the smoke monster from Lost. You can also come across... where is it? Old school Rooster Teeth, tell you what. You can come across the crashed plane from the opening of Lost. It's just there on one of the beaches. And then you can also come across like search a marking in the sand, and if you search off in that area, you can find the hatch from like season 2 of Lost. And just so you understand, Lost was huge when this game came out, like huge. It was a whole thing. And they didn't tell you, it wasn't part of a quest. It wasn't part of missions or anything, or certainly not the main story. It was just something you could find if you were exploring and stumble onto it, you know? And it was just super cool. It was a dynamic thing that not everybody would find. And it was just a fun little thing that you could discover, you know, it's super cool. And I remember the first time I stumbled onto it, I think I was trying to fly a plane, and if you like, there's a point where you go to this island in the story, and it has like these big towers that shoot down any planes that get close. So you kind of have to go in on foot. So I was flying a plane over it. It got shot down. I crashed somewhere in here, and I just started running around looking for boats along the coast, and I found that search sign and the crashed plane. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I go and I find the hatch, and then I found the smoke monster, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, because I loved, like, my whole family watched Lost together whenever we would do our family laundry folding parties. We would all sit around in the living room, take all of our baskets of laundry, dump them out, and fold laundry, because in case you didn't know, I'm one of 10 kids, so there was a lot of laundry. And so we'd all sit around folding laundry and watching Lost. And when I discovered that, I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And they didn't force people to find it. They didn't do all that. They just let you stumble onto it if you happen to stumble onto it. And it was great. It was great. And they're doing a similar thing with Dragon's Dogma 2, where the Sphinx is in the game, but not everybody's going to find it. They're very upfront. They're just like, yeah, not everybody's going to find it. It's something very few people will find. And even then, if you find the Sphinx, you have like one chance to answer these riddles properly. Otherwise, you lose access to her and it's screwed. Like you're done. You're done. It's great. It's great. And I love that. It's a sense of discovery where, you know, like around any corner, in any cave, there could be something awesome that you just don't see coming. And I appreciate it. I think it's so cool. I love it. We have to go back. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. I don't know why I still remember that number, but I do. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. Okay. Dragon's Dogma looks really good. Unfortunately, it comes out the day after my son's first birthday, so it's going to have to wait until a little after his birthday. Oh, that's probably fine. Congrats on his first birthday, by the way. That's awesome. Yeah, little Ori is on his way to his first birthday too, which is already insane. But in June, he's going to be 1. What happened? In September, Loki's going to be 3. Almost said 2 again. No, he's already 2. He's going to be 3. Like, what? It's madness. Yeah, you're right, RS. It's absolute madness. It's like, what on earth is happening? It's just crazy. It's crazy. My son turns 1 in May. Oh, congrats. Yeah, I think we all started having, but there were a lot of people that watched like the streams that were having kids last year and then like 2 years ago, around the time that like me and Nikki started having kids. And so we're all kind of on a roughly the same like timeline. And so like Nora's son turns 1 in May, Ori will turn 1 in June. And so like it's funny how we're all kind of going through the same waves at the same time. It's just, it helps unite us. I think that's the big thing. Okay, let's look at this. So one of my favorite games, sorry, Jacob, new segment. One of my favorite games from the PS4 generation is one of the very first games I ever played on a PS4. It was, I had a couple of friends, we would all play games together. They're the ones that like introduced me to The Last of Us. We're like, dude, you gotta play this, it's so good. And we would all like literally sit in my bedroom and like play the game on my little monitor and pass the controller around. And I remember going to King Soopers, our grocery store, and buying a gallon of chocolate milk. I did it so often, I knew, like, I specifically preferred the store brand over the True Moo chocolate milk because it was like thicker and chocolatier, if that's a word. Like, those were the days. Big old bin of Goldfish, like fruit gushers and chocolate milk. How I'm still alive, I don't know, but I'm here and I'm vibing. I'm vibing. So one of the games we played back then was a narrative game that was really good for parties and group settings, and that was a little game called Until Dawn. And if you've never played Until Dawn, basically it is a big narrative focused game that is all about branching decisions and varying choices. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. And we've had a few more games like this that have come out since then. You know, one of the other big companies that does it is, crap, what's the studio? It's David Cage's company that did like Detroit Become Human and those games. Heavy Rain, stuff like that. And they're really fun games in party settings, specifically because in the case of Until Dawn, there are multiple characters. So you can set it so it's like, okay, I'll play as this character and this character. You play as that character and that character. And then you're going to play as these two characters. And then you guys will play the others. And then every time that character comes up throughout the story, you just hand off the controller. And then you're watching like a movie as they're making the choices that interact and change how your choices are kind of... Quantic Dream, thank you. How they're filtered through the world. One of the most surprising announcements recently was actually that they are going to be remaking Until Dawn. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it's not actually the original studio that's remaking it. It's a different team entirely. It's Ballistic Moon. But they show the remake, and the second you see the bathtub, you know what game this is, because it's one of the first scenes is a character in this tub choosing to get out because there's weird sounds in the house, and so very, very iconic. So when I heard that they were remaking it, I was like, oh baby. But I still thought the original looked really, really good. Really, really good. It's a 2015 game, but it's a game that has been praised because it was so graphically ahead of its time. But this YouTuber, CYCU1, I'm not sure if it's, anyway, that's the YouTuber, CYCU1, put together a comparison side by side of the PS4 versus PS5 graphics of the game. And the original game ran at 30 FPS, and it showed. sometimes struggling to even hit 30. And like looking back at it, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, it's clearly a 2015 game. You know, there's limitations on the material work. The hair really stands out. One of the things that was like a telltale thing of Until Dawn was specifically that they would do these really close, like really tight face shots and close-ups, and they would do it with a super heavy depth of field effect, and that basically allowed them to crank the quality on the face models and facial animations, and then everything else could have low resolution textures. Everything else could kind of be less of a priority because the face was the full frame. It was one of the most iconic things about this specifically, and the games that would follow from it, whether like the Man of Medan or any of the horror anthology that they put out after that, or the Quarry even still does it a lot. So it's one of the telltale things of these types of games is the super intense close-ups. But this is the original. And then the remake. Smooth, buttery. I think the hair looks way better. The smooth 60, the resolution's also way higher. I mean, let's just be completely honest. The resolution's way higher, which you'd expect. But tonally, little darker, little more contrast heavy. The side by side, they're actually lighting them a little more fully instead of relying on the shadows to kind of cover up some of the detail. It's like in a lot of those recent Marvel movies where they just have entire cutscenes and sequences and fight scenes in like the pitch black of night, because when everything's dark, you can't see anything. So it's like, oh yeah, we don't have to spend that much on special effects when everything's dark. Kind of like Game of Thrones in the last season, like that last fight, the last big battle. Everything's so dark, you can't tell what's going on. And then they changed the angle a little bit, but I do think the hair looks better. The model seems to be lit very differently again. Like it's more full. You know, they have not just a single key light off to the side, they have the key light flipped over to this side and then a fill light. And it might be a different, honestly, it might be a different scene that they're cutting it from, but it's also when she's still wearing the jacket in the bathroom, so I'm guessing it's the same scene. They've just gone back and rearranged the shot, so you know, I think it's 1-to-1, but clearly big improvements have been made. I like it. I do think it's going to be interesting to see tonally if it feels the same, because you're right, Schlaben, I do think the original looks more stylized. I think part of the reason it was stylized like this is because of hardware limitations, and they could only have so much on screen happening at a time, and if they wanted this level of fidelity on the face, they had to make sacrifices elsewhere in the environment. So now, you know, they can have more of the background in the shot. They don't have to darken it out so aggressively to kind of distract you. Yeah, you can see like individual pores on her cheek. It looks like her eyebrows are individual like hairs, and same with the eyelashes instead of just like one big mesh. So looks good. These comparisons, kind of tough to see. The mask is night and day. I mean, the mask is night and day. It's definitely a different mask. But I mean, again, the thing that I just keep noticing in all of these different shots is that they've redone like all of the lighting, and most of the lighting work that they are redoing is specifically to show more instead of less. The original, everything's so dark and black off of the main focus of the frame that you can't really see anything. Even if your eye was to be diverted, you still can't really see anything. Whereas in the remake, they're like, no, we can light his hair. We can light the hair and show everybody the hair that's going on. The eyes, we can show some high quality eyes. We can do that. We can do some like really cool texture work on the teeth too, make that look super scary. We don't need to hide everything in the darkness. Sweater's been redone a little. Looks like the motion blur's been reworked as well. The lighting in the original is just a lot harsher. You can also tell like the direction of the light's been totally changed. So originally like the moonlight's coming in from over here. Now the key light is off the front. And this is something that like I've shown you guys before. There's some like core rules of lighting in a lot of instances that a lot of artists will hold to. The common thing, especially in modern games, there's also snow on our clothes. It doesn't seem to be present at all in the remake. But one of the most common things that they'll do is something called Rembrandt lighting, which is usually identified just with a single triangle of light, like on the cheek on the outside of the frame. So like if I turn a little bit more, you can see kind of like just a triangle of light right here on my cheek. Just a little triangle, like a little isosceles triangle right there on my cheek. That's what you're usually aiming for with Rembrandt lighting. And it goes back to, of course, the painter, Rembrandt. And it just looks pleasing to the eye, honestly. It just, for whatever reason, our brains kind of like it. And you can see it all over the place in all these famous portraits where there will be a triangle of light in these sequences. And I mean, whether you're looking at a film like Schindler's List or Marvel's Avengers, whatever, they probably are using a similar thing. One of the other things that's very common is that they will put the shadow on the side of the camera. So when you put the lit side of the face towards the camera, it gives a different tone than when you put the shadowed side towards the camera, like here, where this appears very cinematic, very dark and brooding, whereas something that's a little more full and facing the camera is a little more open and just a tad more like welcoming almost, you know. So it's a small distinction, but if you can showcase the shadow, it looks very, very cinematic. Our brains just like the way it looks for, again, whatever reason. Maybe it's how we're conditioned that way. Maybe it's whatever. This is a really good example of the triangle I'm talking about. So you see the triangle on the cheekbone. That's exactly what you look for. So it looks like something very similar has happened here where they've gone back in, and instead of doing this really aggressive single key light and then everything else is black and shadow, they're trying to do something a little more subtle with a key light off about 45 degrees and then letting the rest of the light kind of fill in, maybe with a fill light on the opposite side, or just letting the ambient lighting do that. So again, might be technically more correct, but it's a very different vibe because this is very artistically striking, strong key light from the moonlight, very aggressive, high contrast, but then this is much, it's not necessarily flatter, it's just more, it's more correct, you know? According to the rules of cinematic lighting, it's more correct, but sometimes rules are meant to be broken. So who knows? I mean, the people that light these scenes in these games are amazingly talented. Like, there's no doubt about it. All they do all day, every day is like light scenes like this in video games. So they know what they're doing, but it's a very intentional choice. And that's what's important to note, is that none of this is accidental. All of these lights being reworked to be more soft and less aggressive like this, it's very intentional. Part of it could just be that they're like, hey, the moon wouldn't cast a shadow that sharp. It's not a spotlight. So we're going to redo it, and it's going to be softer and more ambient, more realistic. That could be the entire consideration. That could be it. Because this is much less realistic than the other. But this also has more of a sort of B-grade campy horror movie vibe to it too, you know? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just they're different. They're tonally very different. I remember the teeth always looking funny in these games. And they've done some work to improve it. Look at that. It's tough because these scenes have a lot of movement in them, and so it's really hard to get a still shot of the scene to compare when there's a lot of thrashing and moving because she's about to be chopped in half. So kind of makes it tough. But yeah, the side by side right here is just night and day. So it seems that a lot of assets have seen total reworks and improvements. Character models are probably mostly just softer upgrades, but pretty cool. Pretty cool. I am glad to see it. I'm excited to see whenever that ends up happening. Have they said? It just says it's coming to PS5 and PS4 in 2024. So later this year, presumably we will get it. But I mean, the original is like 10 years old. It's almost 10 years old. Next year it'll be 10. So buckle up, man. Buckle up. Well, now you have to put your main monitor to your left so we can see you in Rembrandt. Yeah, see. If I turn to the camera, it's much more like Rembrandt, but if I'm turned this way, it's much more dramatic because it's just straight on. But yeah, for a while I had the light like over here in this corner in the other studio. Other times I had the light right above the camera. So when I would look off to the side, the shadow would be away from the camera. So it's just with like streaming setups, there is no right or wrong way to do it, because even like the best streamers, or maybe not best, the most successful streamers have like no consideration for lighting whatsoever in their setups. Like look at XQC. This is a clip from 20 minutes ago. Like there is no light. It's just him sitting in front of his computer. And then the light from the computer monitor is his light. And this guy is worth a million times what I am. If he wanted to get a mini reactor like Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 and create his own sun for a light, he could probably afford to do it. And you know, it's funny. It's funny. I do think this is like my little conspiracy theory for streamers. Okay, this is my little conspiracy theory. Some of the most successful streamers ever have some of the lowest effort setups ever. And I think it's actually intentional. I don't think they're being stupid or lazy. I think it's very intentional because it makes them look less successful. And that makes like teenagers feel that they can relate to them more. Whereas when they have the fancier, super crazy nice setups, it actually, I think, makes people feel more like they're watching a commercialized setup. You know? It's like that old Ninja studio that he like since abandoned. Red Bull sponsored this whole studio. Build this whole thing up because he used to just play like in a spare room. And I think this is way more appealing to people. I think people like this a lot more than just like a crazy fancy cinematic thing. Like, look at this. This fits better with what he can afford to do. But I think when people see this on stream, they're less likely to think that he's like super relatable. Which is just funny. It's funny how it works. But I do think that's my little conspiracy theories. I think a lot of these streamers intentionally take down the quality of their setup because they want to be more like the normies, as they would probably call them. Or they just don't care. Yeah, I mean, that could also be it. It might be one of those like happy coincidence things, is that they're like, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm making ridiculous amounts of money and I haven't upgraded my camera in 15 years. I don't need to upgrade my stuff. Totally fair. Clearly, it's not important. I believe Asmongold truly has no ulterior motive. He's just that way. Oh, Asmongold is always like king of the neckbeards, our god emperor. Yeah, he is just doing his thing. I think that's just his vibe. XQC did not know what condensation was. I don't know. See, this is the thing. I don't know if XQC is like really actually kind of dumb, or if he's just like playing the character where everybody just thinks as XQC's dumb, and so everybody's like, yeah, so he's kind of dumb. I don't know. Because some of the stuff he said, I'm like, nobody's that stupid. Like nobody's like that. There's no way. But other people are like, no, for real, dude. That's him. That's just who he is. Oh. Jeez. Oh. Anyway. Okay. Let's do this. Oh, dude. No, I'm already sick and tired of talking about Suicide Squad. I'm already tired of it. Somebody sent me a DM and it's like, oh, can you look at IGN's thing of like explaining why Looter Shooter should die and Suicide Squad should be the final nail in the coffin? And I'm like, I could, but like, you guys know where I stand on it. I'm already kind of like sick and tired of talking about it. I'm just like so burnt out on it. And so is everybody else. I mean, everybody else is already tired of the game. Everybody else. It like can't even break. Like on its peak, it's at like 5,000 yesterday, peaked at like 47.97. For that, like 47.19. It's already locked below 5,000 on Steam. Like that is bad, man. It's already dying because people just don't really care. There are people that are liking it, but like already people are just moving on and are tired of it. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I'm just burnt out. Just good. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. And like, at least with Starfield, we could talk about it for ages. I could still talk about Starfield because there's stuff to talk about, but with Suicide Squad, it's just brain rot. It's also out of the top 100 seller. Well, it's one of those games that there's always a couple of waves of sales for games. Like there's a wave of pre-orders, right? And then there's a wave of people that maybe see reviews and are like, ooh, that's interesting. Maybe it reviewed really well, or maybe it reviewed really poorly. And so they want to see it for themselves, whatever it may be. So there's like the review wave of sales. And then there's like the day one people that are just interested in trying something new. And then there's sometimes the people that are highly skeptical and are willing to buy it and try it for a couple of hours before refunding it on Steam. And so there's always like a few waves and epochs of sales for these games. But with Suicide Squad, the problem is like it didn't get the review wave because they didn't allow reviews. So the only time reviews came out were for reviews to drop that were negative and tell people like, yep, everything everybody's been worried about is true. There were a couple of good reviews where people are like, actually, it's better than I thought. But most of the reviews were negative, which is why it's in like the low 60s on Metacritic. So that didn't help. All of the word of mouth around the game has basically been bad. Even hardcore fans of the game have been saying, yeah, no, it's fun. I think it's getting too much hate, but it does need more content. And so there's that. I mean, and more than anything, like the most baffling thing to me is that the wave of people that normally would hate play a game to try it and then like give it a shot and then refund it after an hour, that almost always happens with every game that's controversial. Even for like Gollum had a wave of people playing the game just to see how bad it was and then refunding it after. But at least they tried it, right? For Suicide Squad, there wasn't even a spike in players. Like just nobody cared, you know? And that's, I think, the story at the end of the day for Suicide Squad, unfortunately, is that just nobody really cares. It's just, it's too bad, because it had more potential than that, but it just goes to show you that you're not entitled to success. You're not entitled to gamers' opinions, and you have to earn it. Okay, I kind of want to watch this. Let's just do a palate cleanser, okay? Let's do a palate cleanser. This just came across my feed, and I think we all could use a little palate cleanser. Let's watch Henry Cavill be a gamer for 6 minutes and 14 seconds.
I'm a big gamer. I played the games and I read the books, and I loved both of them. I love the adaptation that the games is of the books, and it's a wonderful opportunity for me, and indeed for us, to be adapting the books into our own way.
Triggered. Yeah, I think it's telling that no one else in the cast is like anywhere near his level of passion for The Witcher at all. Like nobody is even close.
Absolutely, yeah. I was playing a game called World of Warcraft. And,
I've heard of all of them.
Yeah. And I missed the call from Zack Snyder to tell me I got Superman.
But like, did you hear the phone ringing?
I did.
And you chose to ignore it?
Absolutely.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Got a call that he's playing Superman. You're about to be a multimillionaire. Congratulations. It doesn't even answer the phone because he's in a raid. That's awesome. I love it. I heard somebody describe it. Forgive me, I can't remember who said it. But I heard somebody describe Henry Cavill as the 12-year-old gamer nerd whose wish to like Santa Claus to one day grow up to be super hot and sexy came true. Because at his core, he's still like a giga nerd. But
I'm a big PC gamer as well.
He's Henry Cavill.
And so I spent a lot of my time playing role-playing games in that genre and played the Witcher games. I played The Witcher 3 through twice.
PlayStation or Xbox?
PC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Visible disgust.
PC gamer?
Yeah.
What, was that from when you were young? Or?
Yes. Yeah, my dad got me into that when I was very, very young.
Do you kind of build your own gaming PC?
I have not quite ventured into building my own myself. I have had custom PCs over the years. That will be the next project. As soon as I find enough time and the bravery, I might put my own PC together.
A few moments later.
And he did it.
These are books that you read as a kid, and now you get to play the character.
I didn't read the books as a kid. I played the games. They released a game called Witcher 3 it's about 5 years ago now. Played that game to the death.
Really?
And then I heard it was coming out. I met the showrunner, and that's when I learned there were books. Read the books, and I realized I was missing out on a whole world of the stuff because I've been into the fantasy genre since I was a kid.
Did you play the video games as research?
Yes, I did. In fact, I played the video games before reading the books. Yeah. I thought the books were based upon the games because anytime I saw a Witcher book, it was always game art on the cover. And after meeting with Lauren, she told me about the books. I ended up reading the books and loving them.
What a funny twist of fate that Lauren, the showrunner for The Witcher on Netflix, she introduced him to the books, and then she created a monster that she couldn't fight anymore because he learned of the books and then kept telling her, apparently in the lead up to him leaving the show, that hey, some of the stuff that you guys are wanting to do just is not really accurate. He apparently on set would tell them all the time, like when they'd have notes for him that they're changing something in the schedule or in the script. Like, I don't think that's accurate. I don't think they like, I don't think Geralt would do that. I really don't think so. And so she created a monster, which is really, really funny. Do I know the game Ultros? I don't know the game Ultros, actually. Doesn't ring a bell. And also, Kevin, thank you for the 5 as well. Hey, Luke, was just wondering what your views are on games like FIFA. Do you reckon they know how their games are viewed and don't care to adapt them. I mean, it's the age-old thing of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Those games still sell tens of millions of units every year, so why would they change it? Like, if you could take a steaming crap onto a plate, a paper plate, put it on your back patio porch floor, and leave it there, let it stink up the neighborhood and everybody else's backyards, and then the next morning there's just a sack full of $100 bills sitting on your front porch, and every time you take that steaming crap on that paper plate and put it in the back patio, stinking up the neighborhood, a big bag of money shows up on your front porch. Why would you ever stop taking the crap on the paper plate? You would just keep doing it. Like, why would you ever stop? You just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again. We all would, because it's free money. And so for them, it's like, why would we change this thing that keeps just printing money? It's until the fans actually, like the people that buy the game, stop buying it. That's when you'll actually see them stop and see them change things and improve the games. But right now, they really don't know or don't need to. I wish he starts streaming to VH. It would be amazing. I think he should not stream, and it's just because the moment, like, he's already had people try to cancel him because they said that he was a sexist for wanting to leave The Witcher because he wasn't fulfilling the feminist vision for The Witcher, blah blah blah. It was a whole thing when he announced he was leaving. And granted, that was just on Twitter, but the moment that he would start streaming, I think it's just giving much more ammunition to people to try and go after him for any reason, because there's a lot of just sad, miserable people out there whose lives are defined by how many other people they can take down with them in their misery. And the more ammunition you give them, the more they'll try to use against you. So for him, I think the magic of celebrity is that sometimes you just don't need to give people more ammunition. Sometimes you just do your thing and you don't need to go any more than that. And plus, like, for him, gaming is his outlet, it's his hobby. Streaming it would just become, I think that's a really good way for it to stop being fun, I think.
Been a fan of fantasy genre since I was knee-high to a grasshopper.
For me, personally, it's like, it would be like playing another run of The Witcher 3, but with a completely different skin on. And that, I think, would be interesting, because I've played it through a number of times now, and it's like, okay, cool, I've done it, I've seen it, and I still get that same enjoyment out of playing it through, but what if I could play it slightly differently?
How much of a gamer are you?
Very much of a gamer. I mean, it depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to the average person, very much, massively a gamer. But if I'm talking to a pro gamer, no, he or she would think that I'm not as much of a gamer. I only have a certain amount of time in my life, actually. I was going to say my free time, but I don't have much of that either, where I get to play computer games. And when I do, I get very involved. I really get stuck into it, especially when it's a good game that comes along, like Witcher 3 or the Total War series. Love those.
What are you playing right now?
It depends. It depends where I am, because I'm traveling right now, so online games are pretty much out of the question. Total War, Warhammer 2, that's the one which I'm on now, because that's always a good jump in.
What a dork.
Jump in, play for a bit, play for a few hours, pass the time, jump out again. And then I can come back and nothing's changed. I'm looking forward to the new World of Warcraft coming out. That looks good, and how they're resetting everything down to 60. That's going to be cool, because it makes the game a lot more playable. I never got back into the retail version of the game. That's why I enjoyed jumping into Classic, because it was 0 to 60 and it felt obtainable, where the retail version, it was, I don't know what they got up to, 100 and something, and you just think, ugh, I mean, that's just so unobtainable and so far away to start the whole game again. I didn't really want to do that, but now they're resetting everything from 0 to 60, so I'm looking forward to that.
So why did you...
Meanwhile, the guy that's interviewing him is like, what's World of Warcraft? What do you mean 0 to 60? Miles per hour? Like, no idea what he's talking about. He's just funny. But I mean, it's just yeah, some people are saying he could go and stream just for fun. He doesn't need the money for it. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously he doesn't need the money for it, but the thing is, like, streaming at its core is performing. Like that's what it is. You're in front of a lot of people. We know that he would have so many thousands of people watching. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people watching. And you have to, like, you're still performing even that. It's not like streaming, at least I have not found a way to do it where it's relaxing. Streaming is not a relaxing thing. It is a time where you're trying to be aware of everything you're saying, of how somebody could misconstrue it or twist it in a different way. Once you get to a certain level, you have to be aware that like anybody could be listening at any moment. So, you know, you might amongst your friends talk about this thing that happened at a restaurant that was really funny or really crazy or something. But when you're streaming and you have a decent number of people watching or that might see the clips or reruns or whatever, all of a sudden it's like, I don't think I can tell that story, because then somebody might go onto the Google review page of that restaurant thinking it's funny to just like review bomb it. And that could destroy a small business because I told a funny story about a waitress that was terrible that we went to at a restaurant we went to. And so it's like all of a sudden there's no chill. Like there is no chill. Like there's always, you're always on, you're always performing for people. And I think if you are in a position where you are well off, you have all the money you need, and gaming is your one outlet, I would say stop performing. Just enjoy that it's your escape and relax. Like not everything has to be a performance. It's why I like that the Bo Burnham Make Happy special. So good. He's like, right now, everybody like is trying to perform constantly, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, X, whatever, or YouTube or Twitter, whatever it is, TikTok especially. Everywhere people go, they're trying to perform for each other. That's the whole point of Bo Burnham's special. Is he's like, even on your Instagram, you're like trying to make yourself look in an extra awesome light and frame this picture just right so they can't see the zit that's on your face. Even though we all have zits, you're trying to frame it like you don't, because you don't want people to think that you're normal. You want people to think that you're special and have it all together when you're just another human being. You know, I'm covered in zits all the time. If I have any dairy or sugar, I turn into a pizza face. Because I'm a human being. People do that, okay? It's just a thing that happens. Why are you trying to perform and act as though you're someone you're not? It's so toxic. It's so stupid. And with all of this, like, if you can go through life and avoid performing every aspect of every moment, do that. Like, people ask me all the time, why are you not posting to Instagram more? Because a lot of people apparently really love Instagram. It's because I can't stand it. There is not a legitimate, genuine person on Instagram that I have discovered. Like, not a single person. Everything on that platform is trying to make yourself look like something you're not. Everybody does it. Every single picture, every single post, video, reel, everything. It's so toxic. It's so stupid. I cannot stand it. And same with Twitter. Like, the only reason I still have an X account is because we have some contractual obligations where some companies have requested that I make posts on that platform as part of our agreement to complete like the platform. Everything else about it, I cannot stand. Like the moment we finish these contracts out, I think I'm shutting down my Twitter because I cannot stand it. I waste so much time just like scrolling it. It's like it's a tailor-made thing built to waste your brain power. Go read a book instead. Like, anyway, this is a whole diatribe, totally separate. Point is, whether you are Henry Cavill or somebody out there that just genuinely enjoys games, I understand the appeal of being like a successful streamer who makes tons of money. I get that. But if you really enjoy something, I would encourage you to just enjoy it, because one of the best ways to ruin your enjoyment for something is to turn it into a performance.
You choose this role in this show, this series, Henry?
I have been a big fan of the IP for a while now. And I first was introduced to it via the games.
The book series on which this is based?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And
the video game.
Then I learned that there were games, books. And that was written by a guy called Andrew Sapkowski. And the books are absolutely fantastic.
Is it Andrew or Andre? It's like Andrej. Is it pronounced Andrew? Or Andrew? I don't actually. I think it's. I've always said I think Andrei Sapkowski, but maybe I guess I've been mispronouncing it all this time. Now I feel bad. I don't know. Somebody from that area of the world, tell me. It's Andrei, Andrei. Andrei Sapkowski. Okay. Okay. It's one of those. Anytime an American tries to pronounce a name from any other part of the world, it's always really cringy. Luke, you still don't say Ivor correctly? What do you mean? Of course I pronounce it right. It's from the amazing, breathtaking game
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Oh, God. Jesus. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's never going to get old. I'm sorry. Oh, God. Okay.
You sought this rollout. You're the one who...
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why? I mean, you just love the games, love the books?
I love the games. The games are, especially Witcher 3, super immersive. And I don't know if anyone here is a gamer or anything, if everyone's played the games, but super immersive. And when I was playing it, I always thought it'd make a great movie or TV show.
The books, they were popular, like 15 million copies or something sold.
Yes.
But what really drove it then were the video games.
Yes, yeah, lots and lots of games. It's one of the highest selling games ever. And I was a big fan of the game, and that's how I discovered it. That's why I discovered The Witcher.
What's your gaming man cave look like, essentially?
My gaming, I mean, I live in...
I've never asked, just so you understand, I've never asked another human being, what do you look like while you're gaming? I've never done that. I wouldn't, but I'm glad I eventually got to what I wanted to ask.
Maybe one of these days I'll send you a photo.
I'm a big gamer, and so I had played the games.
It is funny because, like, you can see everybody else in his cast seems immediately like turned off when he starts talking about games, even though like that should be exciting. It's like you realize easily 90% of the viewer base of The Witcher on Netflix is comprised, at least it was, of fans of the games, like first and foremost. That's what made it explode in popularity. And like the moment he brings it up, you can tell it's like everybody sucking on a lemon.
And then when I heard that the show was becoming a thing, it was a bit like an opportunity dream.
So are you out there like where somebody's just gaming against you? They have no idea that they possibly are in a virtual world with Henry Cavill? Is
World
that
of
possible?
Warcraft? Yeah. Yeah, but that's the only online game I play for now.
Okay.
That and Overwatch. But yeah.
I mean, those are pretty very popular.
Yeah, those are big ones.
What did you...
It would be fun to stumble onto him, but I mean that's another reason maybe not to do that. I've people have occasionally asked me like if they can be my like Steam friend or PlayStation friend or something, and I don't think people realize like I have multiple accounts on these platforms, like some that I use in videos, others that are for like reviews and things, and then others that or another that is just like purely personal. Like I try to keep all my stuff very separate and outlined separately, so there's no overlap, because like even there was one thing that happened, like it didn't end up being a problem or a big thing, but there was a time maybe like 3-4 months ago where there was like a game I had installed on Steam, and I was signed into my like review Steam account because I was reviewing the game at the time. I think it was last year, at some point last year. But I was signed into that review account, and there was a moment where like I was trying to like alt tab to a different app because I had like Chrome pulled up and I was trying to alt tab back to like Microsoft Paint or something. And I tabbed over to the Steam library, and the Steam library showed that game was installed that nobody was supposed to know that I had. And so it could have been a big thing. We ended up just unlisting the stream or privating the stream and cutting that part out and then putting it back up. So nobody ended up seeing it. It didn't seem to end up being a problem. But there's been times like that where little bitty oopsies can happen. Nothing like that serious. If it's like a really big deal that like, hey, you're going to play Grand Theft Auto 6 and you can't let anyone know, then we take, double, triple extra precautions where it's like, it's not even on this computer. It's on a different computer. Like we take many, many extra steps. If it's something that's more casual, it's not that big of a deal. But like some streamers, they treat their streaming computer like just their personal computer doing everything. Like there were the classic times where like, DSP's caught diddling his diddly do during the pre-stream, not realizing his camera was left on. Or like that one streamer that was looking up like actual porn before his stream started, and so it was on like a tab that he didn't close or something. Like I don't know how on earth that happens, but it does. It's just crazy. Can you tell us what game it was? I don't even really remember, honestly. Like I think it was last year because it was in this space, I thought. Or was it? I honestly don't remember. But it wasn't like that big of a deal. It was like if they wanted it to be a problem, they could like complain about it, and it could like get me an email being like, hey, you weren't supposed to show your screen with that on the screen. Like they could have been upset about it, but it really didn't end up being that big of a deal. And I think the video that it was on that game ended up going up relatively soon after, so it wasn't that big of a deal. It was Gollum or something like that. Oh, maybe it was. Yeah, it didn't end up being a big thing, but like that in the context of a different thing could have ended up being a much bigger deal. If it was like, oh, you accidentally had this thing open that got you in trouble because, you announced. Well, anyway, I've been through it. That time people tried to hack me for Starfield. Oh yeah, that was another thing. Yeah, we had people trying to hack into our server for Starfield footage. That was a whole thing. Yeah, because people found out that I was reviewing Starfield, and somebody like went on a stream, saw a bookmark tab or something that I had for going and accessing the server remotely, and they tried to like break into it. It was like a whole thing. Yeah, they were that desperate to try and get footage of Starfield early. It was crazy. But stuff like that happens all the time. It's why we have, it was a whole thing. Exactly, Lucas. But yeah, it's something you have to take precautions for. It's why everything is set up with VPNs and two-factor authentication and all sorts of stuff. It's a whole thing. Yeah, for that game. Well, just imagine. It's why, like, some people have been saying, my dream is to get a review code for GTA 6. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't send review codes out at all. I wouldn't be shocked at all. They should. I think it's good for the consumer to get that. But I really, really can't imagine a world where they trust GTA 6 with anybody. Because it's going to get leaked instantaneously. Like, there's no way. Maybe they give it out to like IGN and have them sign super extra crazy NDAs where it's like, hey, if any part of this leaks, we're going to be owed $50 million. Like something just insane, where they'll give one person a laptop with the game on it and they have to physically carry it everywhere. Like, I just don't see a world in which they're giving like influencers and streamers access to the game. There's no way. Can you cover Banisher's reviews? I mean, is there that much to address? I think the game's really good. I have a video I'm hoping to get out on it tomorrow. I probably should check on that, actually. See if we're allowed to do that. No update yet, but yeah, hopefully that goes up tomorrow. That's my hope. So we'll see. But I've been enjoying it. I've also been enjoying a lot of Helldivers. Helldivers is that's an actual sleeper hit. That's a game I did not expect to enjoy. That has been way more fun than I thought it would be. Way more fun. Just a good old time, tell you what. Helldivers 2, yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Name a car for an edit. A Ford Pinto. There you go. Do you agree Helldivers 2 is lacking in some customization and content longevity? I'm not sure what the higher difficulties have to offer. So I don't know if there's more enemy encounters and stuff to offer. I just don't know what that end game holds because I haven't gotten there. So I don't really know what is there. Beyond that, in terms of longevity of like upgrades, I think it could certainly benefit from more cosmetic options. There's not a ton there. Even in the paid shop, there's really not a whole lot there. So I do think that is an element. There is a lot of customization in terms of gameplay, especially upgrades to like your ship that affect all of your stratagems. So I could see that giving a lot of runway to the end game. So I think there is stuff there. Is it going to be for everybody? Probably not. But if you're looking to really min-max the game and your goal is to like, okay, I want to complete these missions on the hardest difficulty. And that's it. You know, if that's the goal, cool. It's going to take you a while because you got to have a lot, but it's going to be a good time, I think. So far, I've not hit a wall where I'm like, I'm good. I'm still having fun with it. And at this point, I started playing it on PS5, and then I shifted over to PC once they patched it. And I've been having a good time on PC, and it looks gorgeous. And so I'm past where I was on PS5. But all told, I've probably at this point put like 15 hours, 16, maybe even close to 20 hours into the game, something like that. Is it pay to win? Not by any definition I've been able to come up with. So I saw some people saying that, but I don't know how they're saying it's pay to win. Like there are outfits that have gameplay effects in the premium battle pass. So like there are scout based outfits that give you like, oh, every 2 seconds a pinged location is scanned for enemies. Okay. But that's also in the free battle pass, a scout outfit. So, you know, I don't know how you would say that that's pay to win. Plus, like, you pay for the premium battle pass, and then the only way you can level up the paid battle pass is through gameplay. The same gameplay will give you medals that you use for the free battle pass or for the paid one. So, like, either way, it doesn't really matter. Like you can only get this thing through gameplay. So I don't know how you would say that it's pay to win. I haven't seen that justified, but I've heard people say it. But last night we were looking at the shop, me and Corey, and we couldn't find anything that was like particularly upsetting or anything. So kind of grinding for leveling up dope. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games where if you want to just go in and play on the lighter difficulties, and if you just want to go and fight cyborgs and alien bug things and just fight waves and waves of them and have a good time doing that, you can do that and you'll have a good time. But if you want to like really push yourself and go on higher difficulties and fight the massive creatures that hit ridiculously hard, you can do that. But you're going to have to probably work extra hard, very intentionally leveling up these stratagems, going for these, and then combining that with somebody you're playing with who's maybe going for more of a tank build where they are going to call in the rocket launcher that you can help reload. There's all sorts of cool stuff. So there's a lot there, I think. And at its core, it's just fun. Like the thing I've said a few times, and a lot of people have also said, so it's far from like my revelation, but Helldivers at its core makes you feel like you're creating your own action movie in a really cool way. Like it is pure chaos at times, and there are TikToks of it, but I don't have the TikToks pulled up. But there's moments where it's just pure chaos, but it's cinematic and it's beautiful and it's just wacky and fun. And that's the thing is, like, I have not, it's been a minute since I had a live service game where I'm like, I want to get the group together and play more, That's what it's been a minute since I felt that, but I've felt that for Helldivers where I'm like, I'm having fun. Like, I just want to play more. It's what you want. So. Reaction to reaction. I haven't seen this. An insider's perspective on launch and numbers. Oh wait, it's muted.
Studio Suicide Squad required 7 years of development time with a studio of 250 people in the UK. Any AAA game with a similar development cycle would need a minimum of $150 to $180 million to be profitable. People are just simply fatigued from social messaging, but also how much of that manifests in legitimate sales. And here's an example of it manifesting in sales, right? The Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. A lot of people criticize that game, and it's gone down now from, I guess there was the release to 12,000 people. Now it's all the way down to 6,000.
Yeah, right now it's at like 2,500. It is, to be fair, a Monday, but during the same time, so Suicide, okay, it's at just about 3,000, but Helldivers, which is primarily a PS5 game, 143,000 on a Monday morning. What? I wonder how many people took off work today because of the Super Bowl. Super hungover or something. But that's crazy, dude. It's actually maintaining those levels. That's madness. That is crazy. Absolute madness. Super, super cool to see though, because it's just a fun game. And I think at the end of the day, the lesson for the early 2024 has just been that games that come along and just offer a fun gameplay experience at a reduced cost for a multiplayer only or an online only game, they will earn players' respect if they respect the players. I think that in a lot of ways, a lot of people are just tired of feeling like they have to be manipulated into spending money, or the thing that drives me crazy is the guilt tripping, where I had people get sending me messages on Twitter and X, and they're like, you realize a lot of really talented artists and designers worked on Suicide Squad for years, and you've had a vendetta against the game because of that. Okay, yeah, I think depending on your definition of vendetta, what is the official? Let's see, vendetta definition: a blood feud in which the family of a murdered person seeks vengeance on the murderer or murderer's family. I don't think that's right. I don't think that applies. A series of acts done by someone over a long period of time to cause harm to a disliked person or group. This can include bitter hostility or a desire for revenge. Interesting. Or a long argument or disagreement in which one person or group does or says things to harm another. So I think the second definition, along acts done by someone, in this case me, over a long period of time to cause harm to a disliked person or group, in this case would be Suicide Squad. It could include bitter hostility or desire for revenge. I can see why some people might think it's bitter hostility. As crazy as it is to say, I was hoping that Suicide Squad would win me over because I love Rocksteady as a studio. It's just I think Suicide Squad represents everything wrong with modern gaming. And so like how it turned out represents everything wrong with modern gaming. Taking really talented first-party narrative developers and they go and try to create a game that just prints money while sacrificing all the goodwill you had earned with your fan base over a decade, and then acting entitled to the success and money that would come along with it, and all the while deflecting all criticism as just a vendetta in bad faith. Like, it drives me absolutely crazy. And with all of this, like, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, tell me what I was wrong about with Suicide Squad, though. Just tell me what I was wrong about. And the room gets real quiet because we said, hey, there are weird red flags with regards to gameplay repetition. All of the gameplay that we've seen looks to be the exact same thing, just copy and pasted. All the gameplay seems to be tied up in shooting big glowing purple zits on big enemies. There are weird like plot holes that are never answered or addressed, and you're just supposed to ignore them, like Green Lantern's helicopters still being on the map after he's dead, when they constantly say that once the whatever it is, the will is broken, the will of the wearer of the ring is broken, then the constructs collapse. That's the whole premise of the boss fight. And then he literally dies and his helicopters are still there. You could say, oh, well, it's because there's an alternative dimension, Green Lantern, that's keeping them afloat. Okay. Now you're just making stuff up and I don't care, okay? But like everything we brought up as a concern for Suicide Squad ended up being accurate. And as a result, people landed on a matter of agreement. Everybody was like, okay, yeah, no, actually, all that makes sense. Yeah, not great. Not great. Yeah, your Suicide Squad stream was, gameplay stream was very tough to watch. It was so boring. Yeah, and I think the gameplay spoke for itself at the end of the day. Like, I understand that very talented people worked on this game. I get it. I understand that. And I'm sure they're all amazingly talented, stunning, brave, and beautiful. They're not entitled, like the game and the studio is not entitled to my love. Like, just because you worked really hard on something, it doesn't matter. My job is to evaluate the game, and if it looks like absolute dog water, I'm going to say that. I'm sorry if that hurts someone's feelings, okay? I'm sorry. Like, actually, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. Should have made a better game. Okay. But with all of it, it's just like, let the game speak for itself. If the game is good, the game will win favor. People will play it and have fun. It's the great thing about video games. If the game is good, it will find an audience eventually. Like, even if it's not an immediate hit, eventually it will find success. Sometimes it'll find success immediately. Sometimes it might take, weeks or maybe some months. Even like The Witcher 3 started pretty successful, but it really exploded in late 2015 with like the Game Awards, and specifically after kind of the floundering of Fallout 4 not sticking its landing. People then started looking for another RPG to play, and everybody, the word of mouth around The Witcher 3 was extremely positive. People went and played that and loved it. And it won over all the fans, and it represented, what people really wanted from Fallout 4, rightly or wrongly. And so that game, took a little bit of while to get its feet under it, but then it exploded in popularity. It's the great thing about gaming, is at the end of the day, at its core, it really is a meritocracy in a lot of cases. And I know some people are like, well, but I've really enjoyed this game that isn't that popular. Okay. Do your best. Maybe it's that just for the masses, it's not that good. Maybe for you, it checks all those boxes. Like for me, if there's a game where I can just explore in like ancient Egyptian tombs, even if the rest of the gameplay loop is really stupid, I probably am going to enjoy that. But it's not good for the masses, right? Like it's not like that. Twitter people's only defense for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is you haven't played it. Well, the one I've gotten recently on TikTok, people have replied to some of our TikToks and said, oh, I just can't help but think anytime somebody complains about Suicide Squad, that it's just what was it? It was specifically, they said, I don't think they know how to play it. Like, I see the gameplay and they just clearly don't even know how to play the game. Okay, so now you're saying everybody that, like, pretty close to unanimously is agreeing that this is bad. You're saying the only reason they think it's bad is because they don't know how to play it properly. I can flip that right back on the devs and say it's the devs' responsibility to create a game where players can just step into it and have a great time. If you have to watch tons of guides and some random dude on TikTok explain to you how to properly play the game to have fun, maybe that game isn't that good at framing what it does well. You know, like, what are we doing? Siege Meyer of Katrina, thank you. Or Katarina. I've been mispronouncing it the whole time because the font's been so small. Katarina, thank you for subbing with Prime. Appreciate you. Blanca, thank you also for the 5. Banisher's released earlier today. I don't think a lot of people know. Yeah, my video on it hopefully goes up tomorrow, and hopefully that gets more people aware of it because I really like it. I think it's really good. Luke is just a noob of the game. Well, and what was so funny about that is it's like, bro, the entire gameplay stream is up. Like, you can go watch me play the game from start to finish. We're pretty close to start to finish, because I technically played like the first hour and a half or 2 hours or something off stream. I forget exactly how long it was, but it's something like that. Maybe like the first 3 hours. I don't remember. But anyway, like, you could watch the whole gameplay streams. Like, you could go see it. I don't see much. Wait, hold on. Can I make this window bigger? I don't see much difference between Suicide Squad and Helldivers, to be honest. I would encourage you, if you are honestly interested in, maybe you're not, if you're interested in live service games, or you're looking for one, the difference at its core is just simply that Suicide Squad has a, in my opinion, half-assed story ham-fisted into it, a story that pisses off a lot of fans of the Arkham games for many, many reasons. And then, like, Helldivers is just at its core an outrageous game that is just silly and doesn't take itself very seriously and is focused purely on the gameplay. And Helldivers is also just like, it's a lot of whatever you'd call it, like maybe procedural missions or dynamic missions. I'm not sure exactly how you'd phrase it, but it's basically just a game built on being able to go through waves and waves of different types of missions in different settings, and it's a really good time, you know? Yeah, CMDR, I will admit, we've made a lot of content on Suicide Squad. No doubt, no doubt. And it's because, like, at the end of the day, I'm in a service industry. If you want to watch videos on Starfield, I'll make videos on Starfield. If you want to watch videos on Skull and Bones, I'll make videos on Skull and Bones. Like, wherever the audience is where I need to go, because that's what my job is. Like, that just is what we do. And in the case of, like, Suicide Squad, I've been very vocal for a long time. I thought major parts of it didn't make sense. And initially when I was saying it, I got hate for it because everybody's like, I don't know, man, it's from Rocksteady. It's probably going to end up being really good. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's like a live service game coming from a single player studio in the past that hasn't gone that well. I got crap for it when it started. But as we found out more about the game, everybody started to see, okay, maybe these red flags are real. And then closer and closer to launch, it just kept looking worse and worse and worse, and then the game came out, and now everybody kind of sees what I was trying to talk about. But now that the game's out, everybody's already done with it and bored of it, and so we're all just looking to move on. Game legit died. Yeah, I mean, it basically did. I mean, if you're already down below like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 players within a week and a half of launch, and you're a live service game that needs to, like, generate long-term success and consistent player bases, you're done. Like, there's just not much that can happen. What up, Luke? Will you consider Persona 3 Reload gameplay? Do you mean for the stream? In my experience, those types of games are not great for streaming. Plus my Luke Stevens Live doesn't tend to do a ton of gameplay unless it's for something like Suicide Squad or a game that just came out that we can talk about. Helldivers I was hoping to play today, but the servers, the Denver servers are still on maintenance, so can't really play it right now, unfortunately. And the Suicide Squad situation is really interesting because it may be the example of a single player studio cannot do a live service game. Yeah, I mean, it's a very good example of that. Oh, hello, Mrs. Babe. Oh, thank you. She brought me my medicine. A macchiato. Oh, do I put this in the macchiato?
That'd be really gross.
It probably would.
I have fish tacos ready in like 5.
Oh, thank you. I'll be wrapping up in a minute. I don't want to lose my voice. So.
Lose your voice. Do it.
All of a sudden, the house just got a lot quieter.
Lose it. Please. For the love of God.
Reaper, also thank you for the prime. Thank you. I'm at minute-to-minute gameplay, kill storm of enemies in a group. No, it's like to be fair, Arethizzle, I don't think you're wrong. Like at its core, it's a live service game where you fight lots and lots of enemies in somewhat repetitive missions. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things. Yeah, what would you guys do if I just chugged the whole bottle right now? I'd be like, Luke, no, stop. Yeah, homemade macchiato. Yeah, no, see? Nikki worked as a barista for a while, so she knows what she's doing. She makes the good stuff. Tell you what. Do it, no balls. Pussy. So at its core, I understand what you're saying. I don't think you're capping or anything. Is it non-drowsy? Yeah, it's non-drowsy. I was like, that's a very good question. Luke just passed out on stream after taking some cough medicine. But no, at its core, because it's a live service game, very similar things are gonna happen like that, where the core mechanics are gonna be very similar. Because that's just what happens with live service games, right? Like at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do with missions that could go on forever, right? So I agree in that sense. Yeah. I think the difference is, and unfortunately this is something that you either have to see through gameplay clips, or I wonder, can I just share this? Because I there's a clip on TikTok that I saved that I thought was very, very good at describing the chaos of this in a really good way. Let's see, is this it? No. Oh, maybe I didn't save it. There's just moments that are so chaotic. It's awesome. Let's see. Shorts, Helldivers 2. It's absolute chaos and I love it. Explosive gameplay, hands-on. I want to see like high difficulty Helldivers 2. Maybe Helldivers 2, 20 hours ago, hardest difficulty. So I don't know what, if this is actually what I'm looking for. 63 views, widescreen gameplay, love it. From Ginger Straps. And they say this is the hardest difficulty, so maybe this will give us a good idea of what the hardest difficulty can actually bring you in terms of dynamics. But like the thing with Helldivers that I love is that it feels like you're actually playing in a super hectic, frantic like action movie. Like there are moments that are just freaking awesome. Can I find like the automaton, or the not automaton, the Helldivers 2 cyborgs whatever. It's the night planet, or one of these planets at night. What the hell's going on with Helldivers 2 pre-order trailer? No, why is there like no good gameplay of this game yet? Like these swarms are fine. Yeah, these night missions are fine, but they're specifically at night fighting like the cyborgs with the laser shooting over your head. That for me was the moment that the game clicked and I was like, okay, this makes sense. I get it. I get it now. What is it called? It's like automaton. Advanced combat tips, pre-order trailer, cyborg. Maybe the IGN one will have it. This is a daytime version of the mission. I want the nighttime version. Because that for me, when I played one of these automaton missions at night, that's when I like actually realized, ooh, I really like this. But I guess nobody just has that. I also don't know why this computer is struggling to just play a video. Like, what is happening? It's like this. So it's like encounters like this where there's just waves and waves and waves of enemies coming at you. And it was specifically at night when you call in the explosives to take on the reinforcements that come in from this thing. And you see, they just start charging you. And it gets pretty difficult on the higher difficulties. The trees explode. It just starts to feel like you're actually in an action movie. One person said on X was somebody was like, oh, it's basically like space Vietnam. And that's what it can start to feel like when you're fighting these automatons in these crazy encounters. Just last night, me and my buddy Corey, we were playing and we did a mission where we have to launch a nuke. So you launch a nuke, it takes off into the sky, it goes way off into the distance. And we were like, oh, that was cool. It's too bad we don't get to see it explode. And then it explodes. And like the whole sky is just illuminated with this nuke that blew up. It was awesome. It was awesome. But for me, it was like specifically playing these missions against the automatons at night where it clicked. And I was like, okay, I like this. I like this a lot. So at the end of the day, like live service games are always going to be highly repetitive. There is no doubt. They're always going to end up being repetitive at their core because it's just what live service games are. By definition, if a game is trying to stay alive forever and provide you technically endless gameplay opportunities, it's going to be repetitive at some point. That's why the core mechanics are so important. Is it at its core fun if you do the same thing over and over again? And I think this is just where I guess it's a matter of opinion. For Helldivers 2, there is still a lot of variability in missions, tasks, and enemies. Even though it is repetitive, there's a lot more variety in approach. And even just like the difference between the bugs and the automatons is huge, because the bugs are just like mindlessly swarming you, whereas the automatons are more tactical and can kind of interact with each other and flank you and do stuff like that. So there's variability there, but difference in approaches, stratagems, weaponry, all of that stuff comes into play. And just frankly, like I mentioned earlier, live service games are sort of like a divining rod. It either points you to water or it doesn't. Like either it's fun or it's not. Either you have a good time while playing it or you don't. There is no question of like, maybe you just need to think about it this way or you just need to approach it a different way. It's either fun or it's not. Like either you're having a good time or you're not having a good time. And like at the end of the day, if you're having a good time, that's all that really matters. If you're having a good time with Suicide Squad, awesome. If you're having a good time with Starfield, awesome, whatever. Like, who cares? I'm good for you. Good for you. But the reason why so many people are loving Helldivers is specifically because Helldivers is scratching that itch for a lot of people, and it's just raw fun. If it doesn't look fun to you, that's okay. Like, this is not a game that's built for everybody, but I do think if you have some friends that you've played similar games with before, you might find yourself having a really good time with this. because it is just outrageous. It's just wacky and fun. So yeah, PS6 games have been talking about. Yeah, it is crazy, but it's also crazy to think that we're in 2024. Like, we're approaching 4 years, almost fully 4 years into this generation. Most generations are 6 to 7 years. We are technically right about now, just about halfway through this whole generation, and it feels like it just started. But thank you, COVID, right? Like, time flies. What are we drinking today? This is a macchiato that my wife made me very generously, and a bunch of Robitussin because I am sick, as are my boys, unfortunately. So, what I'm going to do, I'm starting to lose my voice, so I'm just going to play it safe. We'll call it there. I was hoping to play Helldivers today, but the servers are still down, so I have my hands tied. But we will be back Wednesday, rocking and rolling. Just you wait. I'll have a new video on the main channel, hopefully tomorrow morning. That's the plan. And yeah, we're gonna sleep up, try to get some rest so that we heal up. I do have another video I think I'm gonna do on Helldivers 2, so I'll do that with some later gameplay that I think can demonstrate my points a little better. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Maybe we'll argue the point in that video a little better than me just rambling here. But anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. You guys are fantastic. Stay safe. Thank you to everybody who became members, subs, super chatted, everything like that. You guys are fantastic. As for, let's see, I think I caught up on all of those. Reaper Salvation, also thank you for subbing with Prime. I'm going to be honest, my brain is fried. I can't remember if I shouted that out already or not, but either way, thank you, everybody. You guys are fantastic. Stay safe, stay healthy, go eat an orange, and I'll talk to you soon, okay? Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.